Good morning, everyone. I would like to call to order this public hearing of the Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety. The time is now 9:56 a.m. on January 31st, 2024, and we are conducting the hearing in person and streaming on the DC Council's website and YouTube at CM Brooke Pinto. I am Councilmember Brooke Pinto, representing Ward 2 and Chairwoman of the committee. The Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety has oversight responsibility for matters affecting the district courts, criminal law, procedure, and justice. Public safety, including policing, violence prevention and intervention, and civilian police oversight, access to justice, including victim services and justice grants, fire and emergency medical services, and the district's 911 and 311 services, forensic science, fatality review and medical examinations, homeland security and emergency response, adult corrections, family law, probate and estates, child support, and women's and gender policy. Today, the committee is meeting to conduct a performance oversight hearing for the following agencies. First, the Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency, and second, the Department of Forensic Sciences. We'll start today with the Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency, or HSEMA. HSEMA's mission is to manage the planning and coordination of the district's emergency response efforts and to ensure the district is prepared to prevent, protect against, respond to, mitigate, and recover from all threats and hazards, whether natural or man-made. HSEMA works towards this mission by developing emergency preparedness plans and procedures in coordination with district agencies, service providers, and private businesses, by maintaining ongoing situational awareness, and by disseminating public safety information, alerts, and warnings to district residents. I do want to highlight two particular areas where HSEMA is doing vital work for the district. The first relates to our public safety apparatus. HSEMA has used the Alert DC system to provide real-time updates to citizens regarding safety. I want to dive into this today to look more into how we can ensure that the communications with residents and smaller groups of our community can be made aware of incidents that are affecting their neighborhoods. The alert system also provides notifications to registered members of the public via text for severe weather storms, warnings, traffic closures, silver and amber alerts, and other hazards. In addition, HSEMA runs the DC Fusion Center, which produces various alerts, notifications, intelligence products, and responds to various requests for information. The other area of HSEMA's work I want to highlight is its efforts related to climate resilience. We know that the district already faces increased risks of flooding as well as extreme heat due to climate change, and those risks will only get worse in the future. But HSEMA has been doing very important work to coordinate and get federal funding for projects aimed at reducing these risks. In FY 2022, HSEMA helped the district win over $23 million in federal grants for projects aimed at things like improving access to community emergency services at resilience hubs and improving the district's investments in nature-based solutions. Much of this work is done by HSEMA behind the scenes and often with little fanfare, but it is hugely important for the district's safety and security moving forward. I look forward to hearing more about the agency's efforts today on these important issues. I do want to note we've been joined by my Ward 1 colleague, Councilmember Brianne Nadeau. I will turn to you if you have any opening statement you would like to make.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am trying to be in two hearings at once, so I appreciate your patience with me. It's great to join you today with two very important agencies before you. I want to focus in on the Department of Forensic Sciences because it is really critical that this agency is up and running at full capacity. We've seen the negative impact that having a disaccredited crime lab has had on our community. Not being able to process evidence in crimes, not being able to close cases, and not being able to prosecute them has led to an incredible spike in crime in our communities. And if we do not pay attention to the way that the disaccreditation of the Forensic Sciences Department has contributed to that, then we are missing a huge piece of the puzzle. I had the opportunity to visit at the end of last year to see the way that everyone there is working incredibly hard to get everything back online. And I am grateful to the hard work of all the people there. But our leadership, our government's leadership, needs to stay focused on ensuring it is fully accredited. So I look forward to hearing from them today. I also may have a couple questions for HSEMA. And I thank you very much for convening this hearing today so that we can hold all of our government officials accountable in addressing public safety.
Thank you, Councilmember Nadeau. So for today's hearing, we're going to first hear from public witnesses regarding HSEMA, and then turn to our government witnesses for HSEMA. And then we will turn to DFS. As always, public witnesses will have 3 minutes to testify, and I believe we only have one public witness today, John Webenson, the Vice President of the Georgetown BID. Wherever you're comfortable. Fantastic, and make sure your microphone is on. You can tap the button, it'll turn red. There we go. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Councilmember Pinto, members of the committee. My name is John Webenson, Vice President of Operations for the Georgetown Business Improvement District. We are pleased to report on the productive relationship we have had with DC Homeland Emergency Management Agency, or HSEMA. Over the past several years, HSEMA has been an asset to the Georgetown BID and the Georgetown community, from the creation and continuing support of the Business Emergency Management Operations Center several years ago, to ongoing training for BID staff and BID members, managing ready.gov, staffing the Fusion Center, and the vital real-time exchange of information. The BMOC has been a good example of a two-way partnership between private and public entities. BMOC helped the Georgetown business prepare for, respond to, and recover from disasters. In addition to opening many doors and resources of information, the involvement of the BMOC led the BID to joining the Homeland Security Information Network, or HSIN, another great resource that allows us access to sensitive but unclassified information when relevant to participate in situational awareness rooms. During emergencies, access to credible information has been invaluable. The information that we receive, pass on to our businesses, really helps our members make informed decisions that impact their staff, customers, and business operations. I think HSEMA has done a great job sending a variety of informational emails that are very useful to Georgetown businesses. Everything from brine operations that impact our outdoor dining, to weather-related incidents or First Amendment protest demonstration activities, all which impact Georgetown. We get both broad messages that are targeted for the entire city, as well as specific intel, which usually includes personalized follow-up from HSEMA staff, which is really helpful. I appreciate us to get accurate and timely information from the staff. Everyone from the director level down has always been available via phone, text, or email. The Fusion Center has also been a reliable resource for us. It provides analysis and shares information on terrorism, crime, natural hazards that we need to be aware of. They assisted us with our annual Halloween activities, incoming protests, and potential threats around elections or inaugurations. The Fusion analysts have always been, also helped us develop a safety plan for our more than 30 outdoor dining streeteries. They included both on-site visits, and they shared a really helpful briefing, district streeteries vulnerable to a diverse physical threats. I really appreciate that they routinely will flag specific emails and often follow up with to support resources or support when needed. And the regular emails of the SARS, the suspicious activity reporting, and the weekly special events, again, very helpful to us in the Georgetown community. Another success is the broad level of training and resources made available to DC residents and businesses. We do regular SAR trainings for our staff. This type of training has been extremely valuable to help our staff, our clean team staff, know what to look for and how to report it. And they've also been very willing to work around our schedule. There is one issue we'd like to focus on with HSEMA. It was related to a relatively minor incident that could have become very concerning to us. There was an incident that was fairly innocuous in which they exposed a vulnerability to the district's security. A truck had stalled near the westbound lane near Key Bridge. It took almost an hour for a response from MPD to arrive on scene from the time that the call was first made. We waited for MPD to arrive, and then much longer for a tow truck. We wondered what would have happened if this truck had stopped intentionally and for nefarious purposes. We hope we never find that out, and that HSEMA, in coordination with our agencies, looks to coordinate a more effective protocols on how to deal with these incidents and respond to these type of things quickly and competently. But in summary, we believe DC HSEMA plays a critical role in the safety and resiliency of the DC community. We are very happy with the relationship we have with them and look forward to continuing to collaborate in the future. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'm here for any questions if you need to.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Weavenson. A couple questions. The incident with the truck, and we were made aware of that,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of different agencies involved with MPD and OUC that we'll continue to follow up with to make sure that something like that doesn't happen again. But can you talk, just to make clear for the record, about all the steps that you took in contacting agencies about this issue?
Yeah, so, we have breakdowns in Georgetown all the time, and sometimes they get resolved very quickly, sometimes they don't. The location of this one and then the length of time that responded to it. So we learned of a truck that stalled or broke down right near the mouth of Key Bridge where Canal Road and M Street meet. And it literally shut down traffic in almost every direction. So as a first is a call to 911, which is a normal kind of thing. We have a situation there. And then the response is really long. And it's we didn't know, it was just hard to get there because of traffic was literally snarled in every direction. But then it was sort of figuring out, okay, we're sitting there waiting, like, what's going on? Who else should we be contacting? Is it DDOT because of their role they play in sort of managing the public roads? Is it DPW because of their role potentially if they had to get a tow truck or a crane to remove the vehicle? Or should it be someone like HSEMA if this was, not an innocent situation? And we just didn't know, but we were sort of nervous about how long it took. It actually involved our clean team physically pushing the truck out of there because we wanted to clear the lane, but the driver didn't seem to know what to do. And it was just sort of a situation that spiraled pretty quickly. We did lots of follow-ups with the command staff at 2D, and so gone through some different protocols, but we think someone like HSEMA, which does a great job pulling a variety of agencies together and be able to assess whether this is just a breakdown or something much worse.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we work with them in a ton of ways. I just didn't know if there's a way to us to continue to think about how they can play a role in responding to something like this.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And thank you for your quick action on that day. You mentioned that HSEMA has done a lot of great training for your staff. Could you elaborate a little bit on what that looks like?
Yeah. So, and I'll say the SAR training is probably the most critical. It's a routine thing. We meet with their staff. They'll come out, meet with our clean team, and really go over a great presentation on what suspicious activity reporting is, what to focus on, what to look for, and then more critically, who to get it to. So we share that with our staff, but we've also done emergency preparedness. And I'll say really before COVID, it was really for the entire bid membership. We would do classes with the HSEMA things on everything from, COOP planning, do you have an emergency plan in place? Is it something like active shooters? All these kind of things that they could be really helpful to them. And I think a lot of our small businesses don't have the time and necessarily the means to know. And so they look to us, and these have been great partners to make it available in Georgetown on different schedules and different times. And so it's a wide range of services depending on what's needed. But for us, really the suspicious activity is the biggest one in emergency preparedness.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And then just lastly, in terms of these kind of real-time updates, your colleague, Mr. Sternlieb, testified earlier, I guess late last year, on a bill that we were considering that's now part of the Secure DC bill for real-time updates that business corridors can benefit from. And just wondering if you have any thoughts you want to share about that as it relates to HSEMA and moving forward.
Yeah, I think what we've learned, because we've experimented with some real-time apps and communicating to our businesses, there's nothing more important than both real-time information. Stuff can move so quickly, but then also credible information. As we learned in this sort of world of misinformation, social media, putting stuff out there. And that's, we like two things: be able to really get real information to our members, but then also make sure it's accurate. And so, HSEMA has been a great partner in getting us, credible information, just like MPD. And we like to be able to get it to our members as quickly as possible. If it is a protest situation, those happens really quickly. And even a text alert through the systems can sometimes take a while. So we're trying to develop a real-time thing where businesses, if they have to act quickly, need to have a plan for their staff, for their customers. as quick as they can get it and as credible as they can get it. And so we think that's the most effective way of doing it. Everyone's got a phone, everyone seems to be on it. So emails are okay. A lot of people won't take phone calls, but texting has been the most effective way.
Mhm. Got it. Okay. And does the bid feel like you have what you need now to improve that real-time communication?
I think what we really would like to kind of work with, and I know it's something Joe had talked about too, was really getting the buy-in from government entities, whether it's MPD, whether it's HSEMA, and figuring out how can we kind of make it a little more perhaps credible, and sort of the buy-in is really key for us. And as we're getting messages out, and I know it takes a little bit of work to sort of do this, but I think they have a lot of tools in place already as we get great information from both these entities, but I think it's the continued buy-in. So they are partners. When we had our original app, we had 90 law enforcement from federal and sort of DC police. And it was really critical to have them be involved in it in some capacity.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that.
Yep.
Councilmember Nadeau, do you have any questions for this witness?
I don't, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webenson. All right, having heard from our only public witness today, I will now call our first government witness, Interim Director Clint Osborne. Welcome, Director Osborne, and
worked very hard to really develop the act
Councilmember
services.
Nadeau, will you thank you. As you know, it is the tradition of this committee to swear in all government witnesses who appear before it. So if I can ask that you stay standing and raise your right hand. Thank you so much. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to provide before the Council of the District of Columbia and this committee is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Thank you all. I would now like to invite you to make any opening statement that you may have.
Chairperson Pinto, members and staff of the Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety, thank you for inviting me to testify today. My name is Clint Osborne, and I'm the Interim Director of the District's Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency, also known as HSEMA. I'm joined at the table today by HSEMA's Chief Administrative Officer, Adrian Gill, and John Nitz, the Agency Fiscal Officer from the Office of the Chief Financial Officer. I'd also like to acknowledge HSEMA's senior leadership team who are here with us today. Emergency Management and Homeland Security are team sports, and we have one of the best teams in the country supporting the district. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you today to provide testimony on HSEMA's performance in FY23 and 24 to date. We have also provided written answers to pre-hearing questions. HSEMA's mission, as you so eloquently stated, is to ensure district agencies, businesses, and residents are prepared to prevent, protect against, respond to, mitigate, and recover from all threats and hazards. Having joined HSEMA 7 years ago, I believe that we're doing some of the best work that the agency has ever done. I'm honored to serve as HSEMA's interim director, and I'm proud to highlight just some of the work that our team has done over the past 15 months supporting all areas of that mission. And I'd like to begin with preparedness, which simply put is everything we do every day across the district to build our capacity to manage emergencies. Unlike response and recovery, preparedness is a long game. It requires our team to stay focused on projects for months or even years at a time. I note your interests today involve long-term projects. I'd like to share several key milestones that HSEMA accomplished in FY23 that materially improved our emergency response and recovery, and they were done through preparedness. First, we've made critical revisions to much of our preparedness doctrine. Doctrine is the linked suite of plans that guide the various aspects of our response and recovery operations. This started with comprehensively updating the district's emergency management framework, and the framework outlines how we create a culture of preparedness. Second, we completed rewrites to the district's 2 core operations plans. You're probably familiar with these. One is the Emergency Operations Plan, or the EOP. The second is the Crisis Communications Plan. The EOP guides how district agencies and partners organize our people and resources during planned events and no-notice emergencies. And over the last 5 years, we've really reimagined this plan to better reflect the unique needs and operational realities of our community. Specifically, for the first time, the EOP does 2 things that we're really proud of. The first is that it comprehensively integrates considerations for supporting people with disabilities and access and functional needs. And the second thing it does is it centers equity, diversity, and inclusion into every aspect of our planning. It's been a long road, and we're really proud of that. The Crisis Communications Plan, on the other hand, marries up to the EOP and establishes how we develop and share life-saving information to the community before, during, and after emergencies. And this was a 10-year update that now really puts communications with residents and businesses at the center of our operations, and that's been a bit of a shift for us over time. In October, we invited the Emergency Management Accreditation Program assessors to evaluate our program. We do this every 4 to 5 years. This is our 4th assessment since 2003, and the district at that time in 2003 became just the 2nd jurisdiction ever to receive this accreditation. This process involves a peer review across 66 different standards and serves as the benchmark for emergency management program health. Next, I'd like to focus on the most visible component of what we do, and that's response operations, which has 3 enduring objectives: protect life, property, and the environment. We do that leading up to, during, and immediately after an emergency. Since the start of 2023, the agency has responded to 47 incidents. The Emergency Operations Center was activated 19 times, and the Joint Information Center was activated more than 50 days. From fire displacements to major floodings to active shooter scenes, HSEMA was there. Many of these incidents were the types of emergencies our agency has spent years training for and has significant experience responding to. But we also had to develop and execute plans to account for new and progressive threats and hazards. This included a cybersecurity incident, as well as our first ever activation for hazardous air quality in response to the smoke from Canadian wildfires, both of those in June of 2023. During that incident, the JIC coordinated public safety messaging and precautions to our community to educate our community, and our agencies were meeting in the EOC looking at all of our front-facing services across the district to review our plans for adjusting those city services. But nothing truly encapsulates what we do better than a couple of weeks ago, the time period between January 13th and 21st, when we managed unprecedented numbers of overlapping incidents without skipping a beat. As an aside, it's tough to say unprecedented after COVID, but this was really a rough run. We had 2 large-scale First Amendments, 2 snowstorms, a 2-alarm gas explosion in historic Anacostia, and a boil water advisory that impacted 19,000 customers, all while the district was under a life-threatening cold weather emergency that lasted for 9 days. It was a long couple of weeks and a great example of how our agency prepares, leads, coordinates, and supports district government and residents in their time of need. I want to finish by talking a little bit about disaster recovery and community resilience. Again, you noted this is a point of interest, and I'm very excited about that. Recovery is the process we go through after an incident or an emergency to return our community to a new normal. A thoughtful recovery process will leave the community better than before it was, even before the emergency. And where response is often measured in days, weeks, or months, disaster recovery is measured in years and sometimes decades. Thanks to the efforts of our recovery team, the district has secured more than $1 billion in reimbursements for COVID-19 from March 2020 through today. For scale, that is the 15th highest among all states and territories to date. These funds were critical to preserving our cash flow during COVID-19 and are now replenishing the district's reserves. Resilience, on the other hand, answers the question, what can we do to reduce the exposure to emergencies within our community for the disasters that inevitably will happen? To enhance our community's resilience to disasters, we continue to pursue and receive grants from multiple FEMA programs for flood mitigation and resilient power projects. These projects have a heavy focus on our historically underserved communities. In the most recent grant cycle, for example, FEMA awarded the district $670,000 to install a permanent generator at the Eastern Avenue Stormwater Pumping Station. This will reduce the impacts of flooding to a historically flood-prone area of Ward 7. And I have a list of projects that are going to have those types of impacts. I'm pleased to report continued progress on the St. Elizabeth's Microgrid project, which received $20 million during a previous grant cycle. We've selected a design-build contractor, and we're actively working with DGS and OAG to reach a final agreement on the power purchase agreement language to be brought to council. The project team has also participated in ANC 8C's January meeting to introduce the project to the community members. And finally, through the Interfaith Preparedness and Advisory Group, we assisted local nonprofit and faith-based organizations in applying for the competitive nonprofit security grant program. This program supports physical security enhancements to eligible organizations that are at high risk of attack from extremists. This is a competitive program that is awarded directly from FEMA, but we act as the intermediary between FEMA and our local recipients, and we provide them a lot of technical support on that. In FY23, a total of $2.7 million was awarded to 20 different DC applicants, and we look forward to assisting applicants when Congress passes a full year 2024 budget with those applications. In conclusion, I'm proud of the HSEMA team's unwavering commitment to the residents, businesses, and visitors of the District of Columbia. I hope it's evident from this testimony, which presents just a snapshot of this year's accomplishments, that they are dedicated to our mission, focused on our customers, and relentlessly self-improving. I would like to take a moment to thank them for everything that they do. I would also like to thank Mayor Muriel Bowser for her leadership, particularly with the opening of the new Emergency Operations Center in 2023, and Deputy Mayor Lindsay Appiah for her guidance and counsel. I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve. This concludes my testimony. My colleagues and I are available to answer any questions you may have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Director Osborne. And if I could ask your colleagues to state your name and your position for the record as well. We'll start with you.
Good morning. My name is Adrian Gill, and I serve as the Chief Administrative Officer for HSEMA.
I'm John Nitz, and I am the Agency Fiscal Officer with Public Safety and Justice supporting HSEMA.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Well, congratulations, Director Osborne. I think, as you noted, it is only a snapshot, but we know you and your team are working literally around the clock to keep district residents and visitors safe and to respond to what can't always be accounted for or planned. And it is difficult and intense work, and we all rely on you deeply. So thank you very much. I want to start with kind of what you all went through in January. Seems to be the longest month of all time this year. But you highlighted some of the cascading emergencies that you were dealing with. And from an agency that has limited staffing, and sometimes an inability to foresee all of these emergencies coming, how did you manage those emergencies in a way that utilize the staffing that you currently have?
Thank you for that. I remember 7 years ago, I was talking to the team about this. 7 years ago, we would activate the Emergency Operations Center and Joint Information Center twice a year by default. It would be the 4th of July and the State of the Union. And then we wouldn't do a State of the Union during inaugural years. We would do the inauguration. And that would be, the inauguration would be a multi-day activation. One of the things that I think we realized going into COVID was that we needed to be able to create teams within our team. And that has been sort of a fundamental element of how we manage these emergencies. To the question about, January, we had one team focused intensively on public information in the Joint Information Center. We had another team that was working on snow coordination with the snow team. That's an expansion of our daily operations in the District Watch Center. We have, for special events, our Fusion Center can work directly with MPD and other agencies to continue to monitor those threats, then bring that analysis back, and then our response coordination team will bring all of the agencies together to say, hey, these are the potential impacts to our community. And so that every agency can look at their operations and their equities and their constituents and say, okay, that's going to affect my services this way. Where it does get challenging and where I'm extremely proud of the team is the ability to pivot, right? So to look at something that's happening, planned events, we can get around. We have a very sophisticated sort of look at how long we need to plan, how long we need to gather intelligence and things like that. But for those pop-up events, the gas explosion, the boil water advisory, we fall back on how we do our work. We follow the incident management process. We have a similar incident management process. Whenever an incident comes along, it's extended and protracted for planned events, but we can observe and assess the situation. We orient ourselves to what needs to be done in the community. We make decisions in collaboration with our partnership and our executive leadership on what needs to happen in the community. And then we implement it. And then throughout that process, We continue to monitor for the impacts, the positive impacts that we're having on the community and the remaining unmet needs. And we train our staff. We use the term internally, strong coordinating humans. We need people that can follow that observe, orient, decide, act incident management model, and that can be flexible and coordinate with other agencies.
Okay, thank you. And how many vacancies do you currently have?
We currently have 21 vacancies,
Okay, and how many FTEs do you have?
145 FTEs.
All right, and where are you on the process of filling those vacancies?
Absolutely. So out of the 21 vacancies, for 15 of those vacancies, we are in active recruitment. So either a job has been posted, or we are going through the screening process, or we are going through the pre-employment to bring on the new candidate.
Okay,
The other 6 remaining, our plan is to initiate the recruitment process by the start of the next quarter.
okay, thank you. So HSEMA also plays a really instrumental role in providing grants to our religious institutions, and providing additional assistance to these groups applying through grants through the Nonprofit Security Grant Program. There has been a recent uptick in threats against religious institutions, particularly against synagogues and mosques. Has the federal government made more funding recently in light of the conflict in the Middle East and the incidents that we've seen locally related to those issues?
Last year was I think the largest allotment to the Nonprofit Security Grant Program that the federal government has ever made. And if I recall correctly, also the most recipients. There have been calls in Congress to increase that amount again. As with the grant cycles, the Israel-Hamas conflict came after the entire awarding process and the entire budgeting process was done for the last cycle. So we're like everybody, we're waiting to see how that FY24 budget at the federal level is gonna impact the Nonprofit Security Grant Program. But we're prepared and ready to put the call out to the community and provide the same type of support we've provided over the last couple of years. And we have a staff member dedicated to that program who's ready to support those applications when they come in.
Are there any other sources of funding that could be utilized for this purpose, especially for added security that we continue to hear requests for?
Not in our portfolio. We continue to look for opportunities. We're constantly scanning the horizon for new grants. We do see new grant programs pop up from time to time. And as you're familiar with, there are oftentimes earmarked grant funds assigned to different types of projects in federal budgets, but right now, not in our portfolio.
Okay. And in terms of monitoring that HSEMA does, are there any trends that you can share as it relates to kind of an increase in hate crimes or threats that you're seeing?
One of the areas where we've seen an increase is with swatting, as you're seeing, which is slightly different from a hate crime, but has similar terroristic effects on the individuals who are swatted. We're continuing to work with our partners at the Secret Service and the FBI. The Fusion Center is monitoring that. We're in the early process of doing some head count, like some counts on those numbers. But we've also been working really, really closely with Director McGaffin at OUC because they're the entry point for those swatting calls. And we've facilitated some calls with some of our federal partners on what our 911 system directors need, what tools they need at their disposal. And I know that Director McGaffin has been working with her sort of federal regulatory counterparts to make them clear on what our needs are at the local level at that point of entry for those. So we do monitor for that, absolutely.
Okay, and can you explain SWAT for the record, please?
Yeah, swatting is the process whereby somebody generally over like a very difficult to trace phone number, like a dummy phone number, or they'll clone a different phone number. They will call 911, oftentimes reporting a violent crime, an IED or an explosion or an attack or an active shooter. And what it's designed to do is it pulls first responder resources to that incident. It causes a big ruckus in that community. It also, like more importantly for us, it means that those resources aren't available while they're attached to that phony call. it means that they're not available for other responses in the community, real responses in the community. And we're seeing a lot of this. We're seeing sort of like a stepwise increase. Every once in a while, we see a bunch of these come up, and so we're keeping an eye on that because it absolutely has impacts on our public safety infrastructure.
Okay. Thank you for staying focused on this. It's of great concern to me, and I know many in the community. So I want to ask you about the shooting alerts. And I know this is something that we have been talking about for many months, and also we've been working with MPD on this. The alert system is very beneficial for residents, but we have a challenge when there's a shooting around a school, for instance, of making sure that everybody in the school community is made aware of that to be kept safe. Everyone from the principal to the teachers and staff to the students and their families and their parents. The pre-hearing responses noted that HSEMA has been working with DCPS on this. Can you elaborate a little bit more on where we are in the plan, where this stands, and what the timeline for implementation is?
Yeah, so I think this is as a parent of 2 school-age kids in the DC public schools, I feel this. And I think what we're doing is we're trying to take a very methodical approach to meet the direction that both you and the mayor have given on this. And so we've pulled together representatives from MPD, DCPS. We have a great relationship with public charter schools as well. And so what we're trying to do is really ask the question of like, what problem are we trying to solve? And what we've sort of gotten to through that process and we're working towards is there's a couple of lines of effort that we want to go. The first is we need to focus on making sure our school leaders, teachers, superintendents know what the protocols are and are using those protocols appropriately. As that gets tighter, that gives us the ability to figure out the best way to provide them with the alerts that they need. As you know, our school leaders are some of the busiest people in district government, and they're, like all of us, their phones ping, buzz everything all the time. And so I think while the assumption has historically been just go to the cell phone, go to the alert message, the text message, because it works, there are other technologies out there. And so what we're in the process of doing for the rest of this fiscal year is focusing on understanding their need. And I think it's not the need for the information. I think we're all clear on that. It's how can they best consume that and then take action inside of the process that they already know and have been trained on. And so that's where we're focused on right now, is really understanding with our DCPS partners, how can we connect with school leaders in a way that provides them decision support, right? I get this information, I know what to do with it. The other thing I think we all agree, all of the agencies that were in that discussion agree on, is that school leaders are best positioned to provide the decision, to make the decision on, especially at a school site, what level of security escalation needs to happen. And so that's where we are in the process. It is, again, our school partners are very, very busy. It seems oftentimes like we can just retrain. That's challenging. We have to sync and align these things. So that's really where we're at in the process, is we're identifying what interventions will have the intended effect, and then looking for the rest of their school year into their we're looking at how the DCPS team pushes information to school leaders on the regular basis, and then also where we can slide in additional updates to training. The other thing I think I will highlight is that we've talked to them. They've identified like the opportunity for us and our training team. You mentioned the amount of training that we do. We've become very, I think, proficient in custom course development. And so we're looking at ways that we can provide custom course support for DCPS so that teachers have different modalities that they can get that training and retraining on.
Okay. Well, thank you. I will come back to this. I think I hear you on the making sure that school leaders have the clear training and decision tree. I think from a lot of parents' perspectives, they just want the information to make sure that they can make the best decision for their families, especially in incidents we've seen where the suspect has not been found and there have been a shooting and parents don't know about it until hours or days later. But we will come back to this. I want to be mindful of time. I'm going to turn to Councilmember Nadeau for a round of questions if you're here. Councilmember Nadeau? Okay, and I want to note we've been joined by our Ward 4 colleague, Councilmember Janice Lewis-George. Councilmember Lewis-George, please go ahead for a round of questions.
Thank you so much, Chair Pinto, and thank you to the HSEMA team. I just wanted to ask about two issues, and I guess going down the same road that Chair Pinto have already gone down, and that's sort of monitoring of hate activity. Earlier this year, as we were grappling with the state of what's happening with Israel and Palestine, a number of my Jewish schools and synagogues have reached out to me, the Milton schools, Selah, and so many of our synagogues. And I guess I want to understand, I reached out at the time to the former director and said, I don't think, MPD has sort of the monitoring intel expertise here. And I wanted to get some reassurances around what strategic planning or plans were gonna be implemented for many of my schools and synagogues. And so at that time, many of them felt like we weren't getting an adequate sort of response, or we weren't in the know. Even if it was a conversation of, hey, we're monitoring and we are strategizing around your schools and your synagogues, that would have been helpful for our community. And so I just want to, moving forward, as is an ongoing crisis, I want to make sure that my schools and synagogues who have very real threats towards them and want to make sure that we can move forward in a way where I can articulate to them that there is monitoring and a strategic plan around their school safety as we move forward.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember. So we hear those calls. We've been working with the mayor's office to identify more ways that we can plug in on top of the ways that we're already plugged into that community. So I would note that I think I'm not going to say the number because I'll get it wrong, but of the, I think 20 awards that were provided under the Nonprofit Security Grant Program, I think around half of those ended up going to Jewish houses of worship and related school activities. One of the things that we want to be pushing, and we are prepared to do, is the Nonprofit Security Grant Program from FEMA. When we get an FY24 budget, our team is prepared, once we get the guidance on that, to reach back out to the community. The same way we've been reaching out to the community throughout the Israel-Hamas conflict through our Interfaith Preparedness and Advisory Group, which is a group of faith-based leaders who come together and discuss, I think, across religious lines, things that matter to them as a community. We have issued a number of alerts to that group and held meetings and calls, and we'll continue to do so because we recognize that the level of sort of tension that those communities face. In addition, again, at the request of the Executive Office of the Mayor, within our Threat Assessment Center, which is the team in our organization that provides the suspicious activity reporting and our behavioral threat assessment and management training, which we've been delivering not just to faith-based communities but businesses and our nightlife sector for the last pretty intensively for the last year. We've got a member of that team that we're sort of designating for the time being as the primary coordinator for that community, so that they have, I know sometimes it's easy to say, well, call HSEMA, and people can say, okay, but if we say, here's the person you're going to talk to, and that person has a law enforcement background and is one of our investigators and is really, really, I think, compassionate to the needs of that community. And so we will be getting a note out in short order on that.
Okay, that'd be great. And for me, as a ward council member, I check in with, our institutions and our schools, et cetera. And I want to be able to point them to someone, the right person within HSEMA, for them to communicate sort of some of what their needs are, and to just know confidently that you all are going to take those steps. And that would be the best opportunity. And so when you all roll that out, if you could just let the council know, hey, when these instances are arising or coming up, this is who you should contact, that would be really greatly appreciated.
And Councilmember, you're, as you said, you all are very close to your constituent organization. So if you're talking to a constituent organization and they don't know like as soon as you say IPAG or Interfaith Preparedness and Advisory Group, please do connect them with that resource as well, because that's our sort of push mechanism to that community, to all of our faith-based and religious organizations.
Great. Can you email that to me? That would be really helpful.
We'll certainly submit it.
Thank you. Other instances that have happened within sort of ward spaces is when we have fires that displace residents. And currently, I think, I guess I'm confused as to who's sort of, I know certain agencies handle it. I've sometimes been told HSEMA is supporting the family. What does that mean, and what does that support look like?
So HSEMA is a coordinating agency. And so our goal for any incident is to create a managed process. And so when we have, again, 7 years ago, I joined, and we had people on our staff who would go out and do this coordination, but we identified a gap right before COVID that we didn't have like an all call to the agencies that were going to potentially be needed to support displaced residents. So we put together what we call the district's residential displacement group. And we have, I am pleased to say that we've had steady, not just membership, but contributions to that from that group over time. And so what happens is when our watch center identifies an emergency, and it's not just fires, it's fires. We've had a couple lately. The Delta Towers was a water leak that we had to evaluate. But what we do is as soon as that scene is safe to access, usually when fire tells us that it's safe to access and the fire's out, but oftentimes hip to hip with the first responders, we get out and we start assessing the situation. And our number one concern is displacements. And then what we do is we look for a few key points of information. One, is this a vulnerable community? And how can we make sure that for that vulnerable community, we get them the immediate and long-term supports that they need? The second is, what are our numbers? And how many numbers are we looking at of people that are displaced? It's important to note that our residential displacements process is primarily focused on renters. Homeowners are generally insured and generally have more access to the resources that they need. Historically, that's what we've seen in the district, but we do continue to support homeowners who are displaced with direct coordination from MOCRS and the Red Cross. And if it's a big fire with a lot of impacts, you'll definitely see HSEMA at the scene. But for residential displacements for renters, what we do is as soon as we have a handle on the situation, we spin up a call with all of the agencies that can provide different types of support. And so I think this is a situation that really highlights HSEMA's unique role in the situation. So a lot of times, our first conversation is going to be with DHS. They're going to look at whether these folks need to be moved to another location because the current situation is unsafe. They'll open a warming center or a shelter site. We'll work with OTA. OTA helps us with the first night's worth of hotels up to a couple of days. And they have been a tremendous partner throughout this process. And then we just keep adding the agencies that have unique supports to the impacted community. So every once in a while, we'll bring in healthcare finance because the community that's impacted is a customer of theirs. We'll bring in DHS Strong Families, and that's where they can get plugged into additional supports. And our goal is always to get our residents back into their place of residence as quickly as possible. And I think it's important, Councilmember Pinto, Chair Pinto, you mentioned the number of incidents that we have, but what we often don't highlight is how long we will stick with that incident. We will stick with an incident until we're confident that all of the district government supports available to those residents have been applied and that those residents are in a managed process that is no longer an emergency, but is more of a human services coordination. And a lot of times that's when we turn it over to either Housing Community Development or DHS to continue with the process. Because again, recovery is measured in months, if not years, even at the individual level.
That's right. I appreciate that. And you all do come to our scenes and have done that. And we've had homeowners too, because we had the collapse on Kennedy Street, which displaced two sets of homeowners because of the collapse next to it. So we've seen varied for our ward as far as and a lot of the fires have been homeowners, sometimes seniors or elderly. What is confident for me is that you all are sticking with them throughout. And my only ask in this area of oversight is just communicating with my office and the Mokers as well. Oftentimes community members are asking, what are we doing to help this family? How can I help this family? And often my constituent services team is trying to make sure they don't fall off getting resources. So after, I know, sometimes they'll put families in a hotel for 3 days. And then after the 3 days is over, they got to find somewhere to go. And so it would be helpful for us to be able to follow along in that process for ward members whose constituents are faced with some of these unfortunate and dire circumstances. And so if you can let me know sort of what person my office can communicate with to continue to stay with your staff as you continue to monitor for certain constituents, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, will do.
Thank you, Chair Pinto.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Lewis George. Okay, so just to finish our conversation about the alerts, is it your view that the best role for HSEMA is to educate and alert the school leaders, and then it would be up to each school leader to communicate the information with their school community?
That's really the current process. School leaders already send messaging to their families, their caretakers, and changing that process is going to be tricky. I don't want to get out in front of our skis on this one. I think there's a certain amount of information gathering that we still have to do. I think where we are, and I think you've highlighted like the key questions that we have to be asking over the coming months and through the rest of this year to determine, again, where can we have the most impact.
Okay, well, let's keep working on that together, because I want to make sure that we're not needing to return to this issue several months after it's implemented and all of the good work has gone on, because there are still families who are feeling disconnected from receiving the information and making the choices they need for their families. But thank you for your focus on that. So I want to turn to the OIG report. In January 2024, OIG issued a report regarding HSEMA's implementation of the Continuity of Operations Plan. This report noted that not all of the relevant agencies have been contacted, and no standards for these plans have been created by HSEMA yet. How have you all responded to this report, and what steps is HSEMA taking to ensure that all agencies become compliant with this requirement?
Yeah, thanks. We reviewed the report before it was finalized. We provided comment. I think in large part, we recognize that program is something that we've evolved over time. The program is better than it was when we initiated it, and it'll be better the next time we have an audit. We're going to continue to focus on a few key areas to make that program sort of sing. The first is we're looking at how we have that program staffed internally. The report, as you read, flags that by legislation, we have to have a senior level staff member assigned to that program. So we're going to transition the leadership of that program. The person who had it was doing an excellent job, but it was half of that duty. We've found a way inside of our team to reassign that to someone more senior and more experienced. That gets us to the second thing, which is we just need to continue to be dogged about building relationships and follow through with our partners. We are moving the whole continuity of operations program into a new database, and that's going to give us the ability to do real-time assessment of who's current and who's not. We've been building, it's taken us a while to build the program, but we're ready to start moving everybody into it. And then that goes to sort of the third thing, which is that handles the standards issue that you raised. And then the third thing is we're just going to have to be really strict about enforcing the program. We've worked with agencies to be flexible around, the individual challenges they have over time. Basically, our focus is like better every day, right? So if we pick up another agency every year, we do. But we recognize that with COVID and with a lot of the other emergencies that we're having, we're starting to see, and I think our agencies are really starting to see that continuity of operations isn't, it's not an academic pursuit. And I think sometimes change happens when it's best positioned to happen. And I actually feel like right now we're at a point where the conversation about continuity of operations, especially again, coming out of COVID and with the number of emergencies we've had, it's across the country, right? Your news pundits are talking about this. It's become part of how people think about business and government. And so I think we're in a really good spot to sort of like springboard forward. And we're going to use the OIG audit findings as sort of a guide to do that in a way that is practical and value added.
Okay. That sounds great. Is there an anticipated timeline by which you think this work will be in compliance?
So every year we sort of close the annual year right around the same time that performance ends. And we then by legislation, we create a roll-up report that goes to the city administrator. We're going to be doing from, January to like the September, October window is continuing to work with our agencies, especially the ones that are not yet in compliance. So to get them up to compliance, but like we're going to implement the changes in this programmatic performance year for the COOP program.
Okay. And so what is that kind of months anticipated?
I would say like right around the September 30th, October 1st timeline.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
No, it's
Anything
right.
else out there? Okay. All right. So St. Elizabeth's microgrid project. I'm very enthused that there seems to be some progress, a lot of progress being made. This is something that I spoke with then Director Rodriguez about last year. Can you elaborate a little bit on what you talked about in your testimony about what the status is of that project and when we can expect ground to be broken?
So where we are backing up, the microgrid project is going to create a power generation capacity at the St. Elizabeth's campus. And what it's going to do is support the UCC building where 911 and now the backup EOC and JIC will be. It's going to support the hospital. And we're looking around the campus at who else we can work with to become what we call power off-takers, which is just a fancy way to say customers in this business. I've learned a lot of cool terminology working with the microgrid. It is the first of its kind. It's the first FEMA-funded public safety microgrid in the country, and FEMA is really excited about it, as are we, as are you. And so we're doing everything in its sort of like process. Where we are now is that the design and the design work is in like completion phase. And our goal is to move into construction phase by the end of this calendar year, because there are some tax incentives that really make the project worthwhile if we can get to that point. And those are federal tax incentives. So we're really aiming for those. And where we are now is in this power purchase agreement, which is basically how we're going to sell the power to the off-takers. And because it's a district project and it's a public safety microgrid, and the relationship with the Public Service Commission, it's taken us a process, because that hospital, who's the primary power off-taker, in and of itself has a very complex ownership agreement, right? So where we are in the process, the power purchase agreement is we're in the negotiation process with the company that's providing these services to run the microgrid, and OAG and DGS to make sure we're crossing all of our T's and dotting all of our I's and making sure that the agreement is going to carry us through, because this is this project has a 20-year intended life cycle.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other kind of outstanding hurdles on moving forward?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, great. So in terms of other climate resilience work that HSEMA is doing, you noted in your testimony that FEMA recently awarded us a nearly $700,000 grant to install a generator at the Eastern Avenue stormwater pump station to reduce impacts of flooding, which is great news. Are there other similar grants that HSEMA is looking into exploring?
Over the last 4 years, we've had a lot of grants aimed at what we call it hazard mitigation, right? So how do we reduce the risks of something happening that causes impacts to the community? DC Water for quite a while has been one of our primary partners in that. I think we're all really well aware that we have the world's largest advanced wastewater treatment plant, and getting stormwater and sewage to that location and getting fresh water to customers is paramount for the resilience and continuity of life and business in the district. So over the last, it's actually been probably more like the last 10 years, we've had a lot of projects targeted towards both hardening district DC water facilities and also bringing redundant power systems to those facilities. So that is one in a line of different projects that we've done. The other thing I would flag is that you mentioned we are going to continue to see flooding. We're going to continue to see natural hazards. Our built environment continues to change and grow. We continue to add buildings and pavement, and all of that leads to a complex sort of flooding environment. But we continue to find really creative ways to work with the federal government where some of our programs are challenged because of a number of reasons, like the cost of building and the cost of doing construction in the district to like elevate a home out of a floodplain, right? So I would like to highlight one other program, which is the STORM Act. So STORM is a program that FEMA, that's an acronym, and I don't know the acronym at the moment, but it was a program that FEMA released as part of the Building Resilient Infrastructure program, of which we've also gotten a number of other projects, including the $20 million microgrid. But when our resilience team got a hold of the grant guidance, there was actually no clear project for us. Within the guidance, there was nothing obvious for us to do, but our resilience team, because again, they spend their focus on the whole district enterprise, and they look at this over the course of buying down risk over years. And they identified a really unique, again, first of its kind project that we had to go to FEMA and ask for approval to submit on. And then we submitted and were awarded, I think, $6.2 million. And what we've done is we're working with the DC Green Bank and the Housing Production Trust Fund to create a fund inside the fund that allows for folks who want to build low-income housing, the ability to use funding at low or no interest rate to address problems, mitigation issues that unaddressed will not allow the building to go up, right? So we're not just in the disaster mitigation business, we're also supporting the district's housing goals. And those are the kinds of projects I think that I think really speak to our team's creativity and our doggedness to say, no, that money's out there and we've been allotted some of it and it may not be obvious, but there's a way for us to bring that money in and have a real tangible impact on our residents and businesses.
Well, thank you. And thank you for adding that example. I think continues to highlight the huge breadth of work that HSEMA works on, both in prevention and response. So thank you. Your pre-hearing responses talked about HSEMA's work related to the Keep Cool DC plan and other heat mitigation projects. You noted that HSEMA is working with the Department of Parks and Recreation on a grant application for shaded bus stops. This is a very important effort and a big priority for us, especially as we see more dangerously hot days as a result of climate change. What is your hope for this particular grant, and how large is the potential award coming in?
I'll give you the hope, and then we're going to come back with the potential award value for you after the hearing. But I think what we need to recognize is that again, going back to this focus on equity, when we look at our community and we look at how our infrastructure is built, a lot of our infrastructure is built for cars. But what we know is that a lot of our residents, especially our historically underserved and undersupported residents, are heavy users of bus. What we know from bus shading projects all over the country is that these are actually, like, you think a shaded bus canopy is going to be like a easy knock it out of the park, no issues challenge, right? But these are actually pieces of built infrastructure that go in every community all across the district. And so our goal is to create shade, right? We know that heat, we've seen it. We've seen over the last couple of years, we've had some of the longest hot summer stretches that we've had in a while. And we need to be looking at different ways to provide shade for people going about their business. And so our goal is to create, options for people who are using the bus who need that shade as they go. We'll follow up with a bit more information about that program. I can get you a write-up for that program that'll give you all the information that I think you'll be interested in getting.
Okay, thank you so much. That would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Follow up. So the new operations center, HSEMA opened a new emergency operations center in February 2023. I have been there. I was thrilled to be there for the opening. How has the new facility been utilized to date, and how has it increased the operational capabilities of HSEMA?
So we built that facility to, I talked about partnerships, and a big part of partnerships is shared benefits. We've been, when we're not activated, and I will talk about the activations in a second, we've been hosting meetings for partners, offsite retreats, strategy sessions, a lot of training. So that facility gives us a site 2 blocks from the Navy Yard Metro, where we can invite partners from the federal government to lead classes. We can also invite district and federal partners and a lot of our state partners to join us as we teach classes. We've been doing a lot of training out of that facility. We create where we provide a second location for fast turn press hits. When Chief Smith was fully confirmed, she held her first press conference from our facility because she was already doing a ward walk in Navy Yard. So we are looking for ways to bring our partners in, and that provides 2 benefits. The first is that, for a big city with a lot of big buildings, there are actually a challenging small number of really good training facilities in the area. So we provide that to our partners for meetings and trainings. But the benefit to the district is that those partners who come in know that we're there and they know how to plug into our facility. So they get that sort of ongoing familiarization so that when we say, hey, everybody come to the EOC or everybody come to the JIC, they know what that looks like. And so it seems like a little thing, but in the peak of an emergency, the last thing we want to be doing is telling someone where the bathroom is. We want them to know how to hit security, how to use the badges, what our floor is going to look like, and how to use the printers and things like that. So that covers sort of like our day-to-day steady state. I will say that one of the things that we focused on with the design of the building is wellness for our staff. We asked a lot of our team during COVID. We continue, as we talked about earlier, to ask a lot of our team in January. And we also recognize that we're in a competitive hiring marketplace in the National Capital Region, especially in the Homeland Security space. And so our facility provides our staff with amenities that a lot of our hiring competitors have. Our facility is modern. It provides breakout spaces. It provides casual spaces. It provides spaces to eat lunch and heat up your food. And so from that perspective, our staff really enjoys working in the facility. But what it's really there to do is support operations. And a couple of key stats, we are the Emergency Operations Center, the big room, as we call it, is 1.5 times the size of our old space. So we went from about 62 seats in the Emergency Operations Center to around 130. If you were to walk in there today, we have 130 seats out. We doubled the size of our Joint Information Center. And I talked about how for the last couple of years, we've been reorienting to where communications for us it's not an external affairs function in the spirit of supporting an agency. It's a mission critical function of what we do to manage emergencies and to support the community. Because when the community, residents, businesses, visitors have the information that they need to make good decisions, they need less from the government, right? And that's how we want it to be. That's how the community comes together to manage emergencies. We have breakout rooms that we've used when we had the boil water advisory. We were running a pilot project with the MOCA team for them to come to the EOC and work out of the EOC to identify how they can better support constituent services. That was the day of the snow, a First Amendment event, and then the boil water advisory. And so we had plenty of space to break people out into teams so that they could focus on their individual needs. And then finally, one of the things I think we're most excited about is the ability to put our watch, the 24-hour sort of like situational awareness team, the what's going on right now in the district and who do we need to notify team, in with our intelligence team. The team that looks, the Fusion Center is now both our intelligence and our situational awareness teams. And that's administrative, but it's also, it was timed to our administrative grouping was timed to go with our facility grouping. So now when we're managing a fast-moving emergency, there's one room where we're managing that, and then everything can flow forth from that. So it's been a really exciting time for us to continue to learn how to use the facility better every time we activate.
Great. Well,
Sorry, I
thank
get
you
really
for that.
excited about that one.
No, it's good to hear. And I think the attention to detail for employee wellness was very important, and I hope is a great tool for your team and an attraction function. So have you all moved out of the MLK Avenue location yet?
We have.
Okay. Do you know what the plan is for using the old HSEMA facility once the renovations are complete?
So what will happen is we will go under construction in calendar year 2025. So there's a demolition process that goes on for 2024. We've already started. If you were to go in there today, a lot of the public art is out, the signage is down. We're working with a number of different agencies who we're gonna turn over some of the newer equipment to that need it, computer monitors and things like that. That process will go on through the construction bidding phase, and that'll start
This year,
Q3. And then once that happens, that we won't have access to that space anymore. So we do have access for certain things right now, but nobody works out of there. When we finish construction at the end of 25,
yes.
what will happen is we will move our headquarters functions. So the office of the director, the administration, grants, the chief of staff's office, all of our mission support functions will split certain elements staffing wise between the building, the Half Street building and the main building. But that building is being configured primarily as a work setting, like a day-to-day work setting for our administrative staff and our mission support team. And then it will also contain the room that you're familiar with as the old EOC. It's going to look and feel from a flexibility and a wellness perspective and giving us the ability to do breakouts. It's going to look and feel design-wise like the Half Street facility that you're familiar with. And then that will be the backup. It'll be the first time in the District of Columbia's history where we have a fully redundant backup facility, similar to the way our partners at OUC have two facilities that they can fail over to or just split their teams. We will have for the first time a ready hot backup facility for the Emergency Operations Center and the Joint Information Center, which we're really excited about. It's part of our accreditation process. It's part of the continuity of operations, not just for HSEMA, but for the city. So a lot of historically, again, going back to the COOP report, a lot of our city agencies, they say, well, we'll just go to the EOC. And so what we will actually have the ability to do, we've always provided continuity facilities for MPD for their 24-hour coordination functions. But now if an agency were to lose a big chunk of their space, we could move their mission essential functions into a facility that would be ready-made to host them. And then finally, that facility is going to provide what we call a Southside Training Center. So it'll be a Ward 8 training facility for public safety and justice partners. So the EOC, because it'll be flexible seating, flexible tables, flexible IT, will have the ability to host courses there as well as at 1015 Half Street. And that's something we're particularly proud of, is the level of support that our facilities have been able to provide and the level of support that our staff provides to our partners so that they can do their own strategy meetings, trainings, and things like that.
Wow, that's great. And what is the timeline expected for the renovations to be complete and the site to be up and running for those uses?
The construction should be complete at the end of 2025, and we would move in when we get the certificate of occupancy back.
Got it. Okay. Well, congratulations. That concludes my questions for you. I want to give you a chance if you have any kind of closing thoughts or something you want to add to the record that we didn't get a chance to talk about.
One, I want to again thank the HSEMA team. It's been a pleasure to be on this team for 7 years. And I told the senior management team I love the way our team works. But throughout our agency, the team of teams that we have continues to impress and surprise me, and I'm part of that team. So I just want to again acknowledge the HSEMA team. And I want to thank you for the time and the attention that you're giving to the matters that are before us. You mentioned that a lot of times our agency works behind the scenes, and we're very comfortable with that. But the programs that we're really excited about, these mitigation programs, we're making generational change in the district's resilience. And we're doing it because we have the commitment of the executive and the council, and we have the vision in our team to look for ways to be creative and to apply these resources in ways that really have, I believe, measurable and tangible benefits to our whole community. The last thing I would say is, and I say this a lot, is Homeland Security and Emergency Management are team sports, and our team is the district, and our team is the National Capital Region. And in a lot of ways, our team is our partners across the federal enterprise. The Fusion Center is part of a network of 80 plus fusion centers. So on any given day, anything that's happening in the United States or the world, our team is reaching out. And almost all of our programs have a team like that, whether it's a formal network like the Fusion Center, or it's the chief resilience officers across the country from the Legacy 100 Resilient Cities program, or it's the chief of staff's network through the National Emergency Management Association. And so the community is a big part of our team. And our goal, as we've discussed a couple of times today, and I appreciate your focus on getting information out faster, because I do believe that over time we've created a level of trust in the community and a confidence that when we push something, it's right. And when we delay pushing something, it's almost always because we're just making sure we've got it right. And so we encourage, and we continue to encourage through our Ready DC update. We're doing a pretty extensive, again, multi-year overhaul on the Ready DC program. We've created the new Protect DC program at protect.dc.gov. So you can go to ready.dc.gov, protect.dc.gov, which is our targeted violence and terrorism prevention intervention program and training. So we're continuing to look for ways to meet the community at their needs, at the point of their needs, and to give them what they need. So the feedback from council, the feedback from our partners at MOCRs and other agencies drives a lot of the way we do programming. And at the same time, we also recognize that a prepared community, a community that is well covered with insurance, right? And our work with DISB and other programs around that, like those are the kinds of real practical things that our community members can do, our businesses and our residents can do to prepare themselves so that they need less from the government. And at the end of the day, what that allows us to do is to focus on our most vulnerable residents who don't have those resources. And so that's a message you'll continue to hear us in one form or another really reiterate.
Well, thank you very much. And I'll share that reiteration as a reminder, if you don't already get Alert DC, to please sign up. Thank you again, Interim Director Osborne, and to your whole team. Thank you all for all that you do every day on behalf of the district. That concludes our portion of the oversight hearing on HSEMA. Thank you again. We're going to move on now to the Department of Forensic Sciences. The Department of Forensic Sciences mission is to provide high quality, timely, accurate, unbiased, transparent, and reliable forensic science services to district and other law enforcement and investigative agencies with the overarching goal of enhancing public safety. The department works to accomplish this mission through 3 core divisions: the Forensic Science Laboratory, which undertakes independent scientific examinations and analysis on behalf of district government and federal agencies that have submitted physical evidence to the agency. This evidence may include fingerprints, firearms, ammunition, blood, and tissue samples. The Public Health Laboratory, which undertakes testing of biological and chemical samples that relate to public health and safety, including naturally occurring or man-made infectious agents, chemical agents, and environmental specimens that may be responsible for human illness or death. And last, the Crime Scene Sciences Division, which undertakes the collection, analysis, processing, and preservation of evidence found at or associated with a crime scene, as well as intake, stewardship, and transfer of such evidence to our public safety agencies. DFS is an incredibly important component of the district's public safety ecosystem, including by testing evidence and providing expert testimony in the furtherance of justice. There have been important developments with the department late last year. The agency had lost its accreditation from April 2nd, 2021 to December 22nd, 2023, which consequently undermined the district's ability to effectively promote accountability and expeditiously move forward cases in the way that we needed. But in December of 2023, the ANSI, National Accreditation Board, reaccredited 2 of DFS's primary units, forensic biology and forensic chemistry. This reaccreditation is vital for testing and analyzing crime scene evidence at the lab and will help reduce the backlog of pending cases caused by delays from outsourced testing. I want to commend the department and Interim Director Diaz for all of the incredible hard work and good work that went into taking this important step forward for DFS. Today, I would like to hear the agency's plans moving forward. I want to hear how DFS and the executive will work with the council to ensure that all units at DFS are reaccredited, that our lab has the highest standard of accuracy, reliability, and trust for our law enforcement partners and for the public. While partial reaccreditation is a crucial step forward in our mission to improve every component of our public safety toolkit and drive down the crime and violence we are experiencing in the district, we know there is much more work for us to do. I also want to ask today about DFS's relationship to the Science Advisory Board, which has unfortunately disintegrated in the past months. The Science Advisory Board is responsible for advice and review of scientific practices and protocols used by DFS, including comparing those practices to best practices in other model jurisdictions. The board is supposed to be composed of 9 members with a range of scientific expertise, including 4 members with direct expertise in the forensic sciences and the remainder with experience more broadly in scientific research and methodology. The Science Advisory Board's oversight and partnership is key to ensuring the department's practices are transparent, unbiased, and adhere to best practices, and the board is designed to play a critical role in implementation of the reforms and other changes listed in the report findings. I'm eager to hear about how the department and the board can move forward collaboratively and transparently this upcoming year as we all seek to move forward. For today's hearing, we will first hear from our public witnesses here to discuss DFS, and then we'll turn to our government witnesses. First, I would like to turn to Rick Tuntarski as our public witness. Please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good morning. My name is Rick Tuntarski, and I am the Science Advisory Board member who resigned in November. Thank you very much for allowing me to testify. The Department of Forensic Science responses in the pre-hearing questions with regard to their transparency and the relationship with the Science Advisory Board are not accurate. My oral testimony outlines the DFS behaviors that confound the SAB members and create the impression that DFS has information it does not want to disclose or discuss in public. Any single item could be a misunderstanding. Taken collectively, DFS actions built distrust, eroded the working relationship, and showed the DFS is not complying with the DFS enabling legislation or its intent. I'll focus on 2 areas. There are 6 transparency barriers created, and then I'll suggest 2 incremental solutions. The DFS set all 2023 meeting agendas and required the DFS director to approve SAB agendas. The DFS choreographed the meetings with formal oral briefs, strong on generalities, and light on specifics. The meetings were limited to 2 hours and no advance read-ahead information was provided. In 2023, the SAB was not provided any of the procedures or other scientific documents to review. Section 5 of DC Act 19-89 requires the SAB to review the documents prior to adoption. The DFS refused to provide the SAB the mock assessment report about accreditation preparations and readiness. Fourth, the DFS refused to publicly post the SAB position statement provided to them in June that outlined how the DFS was hindering the SAB carrying out. The SAB was restricted in its ability to meet with examiners to discuss procedures and accreditation preparations. We were told to submit questions in writing and we would get responses at our next quarterly meeting. The DFS unilaterally halted the November SAB meeting and refused to post the meeting video, even though recordings of all other 2023 SAB meetings are publicly available. We sought oral advice and written advisory opinions from the Office of Open Government in October to ensure we were operating in accordance with the Open Meeting Act. In November, the SAB filed a complaint with the office after the DFS unilaterally halted the October meeting. So let me focus on more of a positive note and suggest partial incremental improvements. First, make DFS administrative and scientific procedures readily available to everyone in a public-facing website. The current DFS website makes it very difficult to find information sought. The Department of Forensic Sciences, the Virginia Department of Forensic Sciences, and the New York Office of the Chief Medical Examiner provide excellent examples of how this could be done. Second, begin to incrementally implement the additional DFS guidance and oversight the Council recognized in 2022 was needed to develop, expand, and sustain the quality, culture, and infrastructure essential to every laboratory operation. There are several existing successful forensic oversight entities. Each of these entities evolved gradually to carry out their important responsibilities. It may be possible to begin implementing the 2022 guidance with minimal funding in a phased approach. This might assist the Council in making meaningful modifications, leading to an oversight structure that will be most effective for the district and beneficial to the DFS. And to quickly summarize, the SAB need to seek guidance from the Office of Open Government, as well as the SAB complaint, characterize the DFS-SAB relationship more accurately than the vague transparency and cooperation espoused by the DFS. DFS actions and information about reaccreditation are not transparent and are dismissive. The DFS-driven agendas, not providing scientific procedures to review, and the roadblocks discussed illustrate the relationship erosion. The SNA report described a similar strained DFS-SAB relationship. This has to change to ensure, or to help ensure, a sound and enduring DFS. A phased incremental approach to true DFS oversight may be an option. I thank you for your time and attention, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tentarski. And I do want to note that DFS has resubmitted its pre-hearing questions in regards to the comments about SAB. I want to ask you what you think the ideal relationship should look like between DFS and the SAB moving forward.
It's a complicated question that I think has to, in a relationship that has to evolve over time. First, there needs to be the ability for the SAB to obtain relevant information without it being a struggle to get that information. And it's been a struggle at every phase as far as I'm concerned, and I only joined the board in 2023. So that's the first part. The second part is there has to be some check and balance to the DFS process that they use with the SAB. They have defined and limited our ability to do work with the SAB having no alternatives to pursue the information that we need. And to me, those are two of the biggest issues. And I think that the improvement has to be incremental with some appropriate oversight.
Okay, and in your experience, when you talk about lack of access to information, what did that look like in practice? Was it requests specifically denied or not knowing when there were updates coming?
We had no visibility on any procedures that were rewritten or updated, and we know that they had to have been done for the ANAB assessment. That's a requirement. We also know that the ANAB requires the laboratory to produce a master document list that shows all procedures, all documents, all forms that the laboratory uses. And that kind of information was never provided to the SAB. And in our position statement that we submitted in June, we were very clear that we are not getting the information to review that we need to see. I think the thing that stands out to me the most is the DFS denial to provide the mock assessment report that was prepared. They deny that they prepared any such reports in their pre-hearing questions and answers. Yet we heard the contractor at the June, or I think it was the June meeting, say it's prepared. We made several requests for that, and it was denied, saying we're not entitled to that kind of information. The Science Advisory Board should be working in close partnership. We're an asset. We're to the DFS to help them achieve and maintain the professional standards that we all want to have for the forensic laboratory and the public safety laboratory.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that and for sharing those details. In terms of process for reaccreditation, DFS has said that it plans to reaccredit the latent fingerprint unit by 2025 and the crime scenes unit after that. What do you think about that incremental plan?
Well, I think they also talked about, well, and I apologize, I will address that, but I also think there's a relevant question with regards to the firearms unit. The latent print examiners, if I am reading the information correctly, and we don't get updates that we asked for, I think there are only 2 latent print examiners. I'm not positive of that. But there needs to be a workload assessment to determine what the number of examiners should be and whether they have the appropriate resources to actually carry out the volume of fingerprint work that I suspect is necessary in the district. I think they should be reaccredited. I think there's real value in having a fingerprint unit. It's an essential crime scene element in particular. With regards to the crime scene unit, again, we don't have any real perspective on their workload, but they do need the ability to capture information in a ready fashion, digest that rapidly, and provide that to both the criminal investigators and the judicial system.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Nadeau, do you have any questions for Mr. Tantarski?
I don't. I do want to thank him. However, I want to thank you for your testimony today and for the work that you're doing, really, to just bring more attention to the importance of the SAC. I've really appreciated your engagement, especially over the last several months, about places where we need to improve the SAC's input and the public's access to that information. So thank you.
Happy to do it.
Thank you, Councilmember Nadeau. Thank you very much, Mr. Tintarski, for your service and
Ma'am.
for being here today.
May I make one comment about the firearms unit because it's relevant to all of the reaccreditation efforts and introspection that the DFS is doing.
Sure.
So one of the things that has always been done when there have been forensic failures across the forensic community, or there have been failures across the community for providers, is to do an assessment of what the scope of the problem was. That means looking at an appropriate number of cases and delving deep into what the underlying issues were. Often the cases are not, or often the problems, I should say, are not necessarily associated with an individual examiner's failure. They are most often systemic failures that have a root cause much more in the organizational entity and its procedures. I think that kind of assessment was never done. At least there's no documentation of it that I can find, and that's particularly true for the latent fingerprint work and firearms work. That kind of initial work is really essential to understand what fundamental underlying problems may exist. And that's the only way to begin correcting those.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. With that, we are going to move to our government witnesses. Thank you again, Mr. Tintarski.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
And our government witness is Interim Director Francisco Diaz. Welcome to you and your team. And as you may know, it is the tradition of this committee to swear in all government witnesses who appear before it and who may be answering questions. So if I can ask you all to raise your right hand and turn your microphones on, it should appear red. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you are about to provide before the Council of the District of Columbia and this committee is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
Thank you all. Dr. Diaz, I'd like to invite you to make any opening statement that you may have.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Chairperson Pinto. I'm going to read my statement if you have no objection. And if you have no objection also, I would like to introduce my team. I will try to do it fast. Sitting to my right is Dr. Jennifer Love. She is the newly appointed Chief Science Officer for the Department of Forensic Sciences. She joined in October of 2023. To my left is the Chief Operating Officer, Ms. Gretchen Bromley. And the saying is, it takes a village, but it takes more than a village. It takes a team of scientists, professionals, and administrators to carry accomplishments in a complex department like the Department of Forensic Sciences. And for that reason, to my right, I have my team, the Agency Fiscal Officer, the Chief Information Technology, the Director of the Crime Scene Sciences, Ms. Alicia Wheeler-Moore, the General Counsel, Ms. Hillary Hoffman, the Director of Human Resources, Ms. Kiana Hall, the Director of the Public Health Lab, Dr. Jocelyn Hauser. We have also the Quality Director for the Department of Forensic Sciences, Ms. Christina Strain, and the Director of the Forensic Science Lab, Ms. Christy Hopkinson. And all of them came today because they are the integral part of the Department of Forensic Sciences. Thank you for allowing me to introduce my team. And if you have no objection, I will read a statement. Good morning, Chairperson Pinto, council members, and staff of the Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety. I am Dr. Francisco J. Diaz, Interim Director of the Department of Forensic Sciences, and also Chief Medical Examiner for the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in the District of Columbia. Thank you for inviting us to testify on behalf of Mayor Muriel Bowser to discuss the fiscal year 2023 activities and accomplishments of DFS. I am pleased to report on the progress that DFS has made over the past year, utilizing the resources provided by Mayor Bowser in her efforts to provide safer streets for district residents and visitors. I value this opportunity to recognize DFS efforts to improve our operations, maintain our quality, engage our customers, build toward the future, and help create a safer, stronger district. The progress that has occurred has only been possible due to the mayor's longstanding commitment to provide the resources that the department needs and the support of the council. In addition to our state-of-the-art facility, DFS staff continue to work tirelessly to meet the needs of the district residents and restore trust with our stakeholders. Our laboratories and offices are filled with capable and dedicated scientists and a staff who strive daily to deliver high-quality and reliable crime scene responses, forensic sciences, and public health services and support. I would be remiss if I didn't pause to acknowledge the incredible and consistent efforts of the staff who have led their teams forward through the necessary improvements to achieve many of our substantial accomplishments and help make the residents in the district safer. I will provide some overview of the accomplishments for each of our programs within the Department of Forensic Sciences. Under the leadership of the recently hired Chief Science Officer, Dr. Jennifer Love, and Deputy Chief Science Officer and Interim Forensic Science Lab Director, Christy Hopkinson, the Forensic Science Lab, which currently includes the Forensic Biology Unit, the Forensic Chemistry Unit, Latent Fingerprint Unit, and Forensic Intelligence Unit, the Forensic Biology Unit successfully outsourced 271 physical evidence recovery kits, formerly known as sexual assault kits, and over 955 requests for testing with an average turnaround of 69 days. The LFU outsourced approximately 784 latent print analysis requests with an average turnaround of 66 days. The Forensic Chemistry Unit outsourced 90 cases with an average turnaround of less than 60 days. Collectively, the Forensic Intelligence Unit received and processed over 3,500 forensic requests for testing from stakeholders. Despite the pause of in-house forensic testing due to the division's accreditation status, the Forensic Science Lab has been hard at work revamping its processes, procedures, and protocols in preparation for application of reaccreditation while continuing to support the district's criminal justice system through continuation of casework processing via outsourcing. In hiring and working directly with the consulting firm, Forensic Analysis Consulting and Training, better known as FACT, as well as Evolve Forensics, the Forensic Science Lab and quality teams have successfully implemented several recommendations issued in the December 2021 SNA International Report, such as 1, securing the services of experts in ISO 17025 accreditation requirements to conduct an independent assessment for the latent fingerprints unit. 2, updating various policies and procedures surrounding evidence handling, document retention, and document management in line with regulatory guideline and accrediting body requirements. 3, completing a management series offered by George Washington University. And finally, establishing an online complaint form for our customers and stakeholders. As a result of these efforts, the Forensic Science Lab was deemed prepared to submit the application for reaccreditation for the Forensic Biology Unit and Forensic Chemistry Unit, with the external assessment taking place December 4, 5, and 6 of 2023. And on December the 22nd of 2023, we received news from the National Accreditation Board, ANAB, that this assessment resulted in the identification of 0, and I will repeat that, 0 nonconformities and 1 recommendation, restoring the accredited status of the Forensic Biology Unit as well as the Forensic Chemistry Unit. In addition to the outstanding news of the restored accreditation status of these 2 units, the Forensic Science Lab has achieved several notable accomplishments through fiscal year 23, including 2 International Association of Identification certified latent scientists in the latent fingerprint unit. So those were 2 of our scientists that has been certified by IAI. Approval status of an ANAP qualified forensic assessor within the forensic biology unit team. That means one of our scientists is going to be an ANAP assessor moving forward. And the recent issuance of the forensic biology unit's first combined DNA index system match notification reflecting the ANAP accreditation symbol. Under the leadership of Ms. Alicia Wheeler-Moore, the Crime Scene Sciences Division continues to perform many other critical and key functions in service to district residents and visitors. In response to crimes within the District of Columbia, our Crime Scene Science Unit has been hard at work responding to service requests for processing scenes. In fiscal year 23, that unit processed 12,251 crime scenes, with the Central Evidence Unit receiving 6,759 pieces of evidence for intake, storage, and maintenance. Crime Scene Science members have also participated in various trainings to enhance current skills, as well as acquire new skills in the field of crime scene processing by attending courses in areas such as advanced photography, latent print chemical processing, and shooting reconstruction. In addition, the Crime Scene Science team unwavering commitment to responding to and processing crime scenes expeditiously, the division continues to acquire the most advanced technology and equipment to enhance and expedite this critical work. For instance, the purchase of Leica 3D laser scanners and Nikon high-definition mirrorless cameras have assisted in producing high-level accuracy of crime scene documentation, adhering to best practices in the field of crime scene processing, and providing our partners and stakeholders with a quality experience of processing evidence on the scene of the crime. The Public Health Laboratory, led by Director Dr. Jocelyn Hauser, conducts testing of public health significance and extends locally important testing provided at the federal level by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The Public Health Lab provides clinical diagnostic testing, disease surveillance, emergency response support, applied research, laboratory training, and other essential services through its 5 units, which are the accessioning unit, microbiology unit, clinical chemistry unit, immunology virology unit, and molecular diagnostic unit. In fiscal year 23, the Public Health Lab conducted a total of 25,718 tests for public health samples received, including influenza subtyping, rabies testing, arbovirus screening, testing for foodborne outbreaks, COVID-19, and monkeypox. In fiscal year 23, the Public Health Lab once again successfully demonstrated compliance with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services Clinical Laboratory Improvement Amendments, CLIA, in their regulatory guidelines, as well as the Center for Disease Control Division of Select Agents and Toxins, DSAT. Additionally, the Public Health Lab implemented wastewater processing in all 8 wards in the district, developing a sequencing process for detecting SARS-CoV-2 and other pathogens in wastewater. The Public Health Lab also continued to expand upon its focus in research, development, and training in the public health field by collaborating with the CDC Technical Assistant Program to implement a cross-training program to enhance and diversify the skills of PHL staff, increasing the division's readiness to adequately respond to surges in public health outbreaks. In fiscal year 23, our legal team received and handled 608 discovery requests. They also received and responded to 16 FOIA requests, all of which were answered within the 15-day turnaround time. The legal team also oversaw the creation and approval of 57 memorandums of agreement and memorandums of understanding between the department and other agencies. Throughout targeted recruitment, the agency was able to achieve a 21% vacancy rate, onboarding 35 new employees in fiscal year 23, allowing increased efficiencies in providing critical forensic and public health services. Currently, the agency vacancy rate is 19%. Specifically, the vacancy rate reduction has allowed the Public Health Lab to expand capabilities in bioterrorism, COVID-19, monkeypox, and testing of other viral outbreaks, and crime scene sciences to see its staffing increase to 96% capacity for responding to and collecting evidence from crime scenes. Additionally, the Forensic Science Lab made critical new hires, such as the onboarding of a new Chief Science Officer and a Quality Assurance Manager to assist in the efforts of gaining re-accreditation and bringing forensic testing and analysis services back online to help the resolution of criminal cases impacting DC residents and visitors. In fiscal year 23, our information technology team was instrumental in ensuring the continuity of services, system improvements, and optimization for the professional and scientific functions within DFS. Under the direction of our Chief Information Officer, our team continues its diligent work on customization and upgrades to various agency systems, such as the Lab Information Management System, which is the central repository for tracking of criminal casework and evidence received and processed by the agency. Through hiring and working closely with our vendor, SNA International, the IT team has been steadfast in reaching established goals for the LIMS project. In addition to managing major technological projects, the IT team has been instrumental in ensuring continuity of daily technical needs for the agency, handling over 1,200 service requests in fiscal year 23. Under the management of the Chief Operating Officer, the operations team performs several critical functions, including budget management, contracts, and procurement, performance management oversight and coordination, and ensuring the health and safety of our staff. In fiscal year 23, our team processed 159 procurement requisitions and 386 purchase card transactions, while ensuring we met the district departments of a small and local business development compliance requirement. In collaboration with the Department of General Services, the operations team coordinates all facilities, maintenance, tasks, and projects. Our health and safety team provided oversight, guidance, and training to ensure the agency remains compliant with the Occupational Safety and Health Administration and all building-related regulations. I could not be prouder of the work DFS has done under our leadership. I am confident DFS will deliver even greater returns for the people of the district. I would like to acknowledge Mayor Bowser, City Administrator Donahue, and Deputy Mayor Apia, and their staff for the continuous and general support of DFS as we strive to achieve the mayor's vision of a safer, stronger DC. I would like to also recognize our public safety partners who support DFS, and I am very grateful and thankful to the DFS team who work within the offices and laboratories of the Department of Forensic Sciences, whose stronger sciences has led to safer streets for our friends and neighbors in the district. In closing, I would like to thank you for your leadership and support. We appreciate the opportunity to share our achievement. This concludes my written testimony.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Diaz, and congratulations to you and your team on the recent successes and achievements, which are really worth celebrating. I'm going to turn first to my at-large colleague, Councilmember Christina Henderson, who's also a member of this committee, for a 10-minute round.
Thank you, Councilmember Pinto. Good morning, or, yep, still morning. Good morning, Dr. Diaz. I'm chairing a hearing upstairs, so I appreciate my colleagues giving me this opportunity to come down. I wanted to talk to you guys. First, congratulate you all for the great work that you've done in terms of securing the accreditation, but also talking about what's happening going forward. As when I talk to community members, you know, the Department of Forensic Sciences has a critical role to play, I think, in our public safety ecosystem. And the success of the agency, I think, will lead to the success in our ability to turn around some of the trends that we've seen thus far. So first, I want to start with hiring. So you've received your accreditation back, but I see that DFS still has about 55 vacancies. 5 of those are in the fingerprinting lab. We'll put those to the side because I know we're not there in terms of accreditation there. But when I go to the Office of Human Resources, there's like an acronym for everything. When I go to their DCHR, their website, they only have 1 job posted for Department of Forensic Sciences, which is a forensic scientist. That leaves 49 other vacant positions. Are we in active recruitment? Why are those not posted? Are you on a hiring freeze?
No, we're not in a hiring freeze. The accreditation has helped us propel the agency towards the larger scientific community. And I will try to be brief because I know your time is brief. But in the scientific community, it's all about reputation. We submitted the application within the scope to be reaccredited on 2 divisions. That has carried a lot of weight in the scientific community. That was achieved from the time of submitting the application, July, to being accredited in early December. So we do have plans to hire and to be fully staffed. We just want to have the opportunity to hire the best scientists that we can obtain.
I agree with you on that. In terms of the plan for hiring, so right, we're looking, I think about even my conversations with DC Health about the sanitarians, right? It's a very specific position that is looking for a very specific person. So it's not as though you can just go to the general hiring fair and find, 25 qualified candidates. I'm assuming that there's some specialized conferences in other places where DFS now needs to get back out there and say, hey, we're back open for business.
You answer the question for me. That is,
okay.
You are 100%. It will take this calendar year. For example, the next conference that Dr. Jennifer Love will attend, and she was the former chair of one of their division, is the American Academy of Forensic Sciences. That's a international and national conference that usually is attended by 6,000 forensic scientists.
Okay.
The next one will be April, which will be the American Society for Criminal Laboratory Directors.
Okay, and we're booked, we're going?
Yeah, we are going to every single conference.
Great.
And Dr. Love and myself, as the standard bearer scientist, with accreditation under our bags, then we go and recruit the scientists.
Okay.
We have a lot of interest from scientists to work with DFS in DC.
Okay,
for
great.
sure.
Now for you, Dr. Diaz, I love you, but you are doing double duty.
I am.
So I know your other agency likes you as well.
Yes.
And I'm sure your family wants you to sleep.
Yes.
So what are the conversations you're having with the executive around a permanent placement or permanent director for Department of Forensic Sciences?
I appreciate your comment. I tell people I used to have black hair, but I don't anymore. But be that as it may, as public servants, I think we have to do what we have to do. I took on the challenge in May because I work in that building. The Department of Forensic Science, Public Health Laboratories,
No, it's a
and
perfect.
OCME are in the same building. And in my opinion, and I expressed that to you in private, the scientists and all the workers at DFS were being besmirched and maligned for no good reason when I know they go and work every single day. So I took on the challenge. I serve at the pleasure of the mayor.
Okay.
And when the mayor decides to take on a different posture, so far, I am not going to tell you that I'm drowning. I like the challenge, and that's what I brought the team. It's not about me as the
Yep.
director, it's them.
Okay. I could follow up with the city administrator on that front. Again, I just want to, I like your salt and pepper hair, but I don't want you to be all white by the end of the calendar year in terms of doing this work. Okay, so I'm trying to sort of move sort of quicker here. You all regained accreditation for DNA and drug testing. You have new policies and protocols or that required new policies and protocols in place in order for you all to continue to maintain that.
Yes.
Does it require any retraining of staff already hired?
It requires a continuing training, continuing certification. In order to maintain accreditation through the years, it's a process of continuum.
Okay.
It's a process. Example, we were accredited on December of 2023. We're going to have a reaccreditation process on December of 2024. And
Okay, so it's a continuous,
It is a
ongoing.
continuous, it's ongoing, and that's why the commitment that institutions like DFS or OCME have to make in order to sustain those accreditation. It's a commitment that goes processes, procedures, policies, training,
Okay.
accreditations, and so on.
Even in the midst of, I guess, while you're going through this hiring reboot, if you will, I'm assuming you all are still contracting with some outside labs. We've heard that testimony from the USAO, that he also has contracts with outside labs. How many external lab contracts does DFS currently have?
Yes, and before I pass to Dr. Love, it's important to understand for the public at large that yes, we have been reaccredited, but the process of starting work is not going to happen immediately or instantaneously. It's going to take a little bit of time, short time, and once we are within 100% capacity. And with that, I will let Dr. Love answer that specific question.
Okay.
Thank you.
You
Good
just
morning.
hit your mic in front of you. There you go.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. So, yes, we do have contracting for outsourcing that we're doing now,
Mhm.
as we bring our laboratories online and bring the testing in-house. This will continue even after we're up and fully running for capacity
Right.
reasons, for
So how
source
many
and all
different
that.
contracts do you
So
have?
right now we have in DNA, we have 3 separate
Okay.
contracts, 3 that we work with. In chemistry, 1 contract that we work with, and latent fingerprints, 1 contract
Okay.
that we work with.
Are those contracts for a length of term or are they based on quantity of samples?
A length of term.
Term. Okay. Okay. And so should we anticipate, I guess, we can ask that question in March. I was going to ask a budgetary question around whether or not you'll be maintaining or seeking to increase the contract costs for those particular contracts, but we could talk about that in March.
Certainly.
Okay. In terms of expectation setting, not just with the public, I know you're sort of talking about that, but expectation setting with your government partners, have those conversations been had?
Those conversations have been had.
Okay.
Specifically with the United States Attorney as well as the Office of the Attorney General. And we are working closely with the United States Attorney in terms of sharing the information we have and how we are proceeding forward.
Okay. I want to ask a couple questions about the public health lab because, we went through a little bump last year. But also I've been really trying to work hard and communicating with DC Health that I feel like there needs to be an improved relationship between the department and the public health agency or the public health lab within you guys. I understand that DC Health acts as a pass-through agency for a number of your federal subgrants. We talked last year, you all said it was an opaque process. You didn't know when you were going to get them, et cetera. Now, I already had my hearing with DC Health and I have their answer. So I'm going to ask you the same question. Do you feel like the relationship has improved in terms of the subgranting process, in terms of you all having an idea of how much money you're supposed to receive and the timing for which you receive it? Now, be honest.
Sure. I am under oath. The relationship has improved. However, the MOUs have not been signed or executed as of today. We expect that they are going to be in the next few days. And when that occurs, we expect the funding to be available to the public health laboratory.
Okay, the MOU for FY '24
Yes,
has not been signed,
correct.
and tomorrow's February,
Yes.
and the fiscal year started in October. Okay, I'll follow up with them. Thank you, Councilmember Pinto and Councilmember Nadeau, for your patience.
Great. Thank you so much, Councilmember Henderson. All right. So I want to look backwards first, because I think as we solve any problem and ensure that challenges don't happen again, it's important to understand where things went wrong. So can you explain in your words why the lab lost its accreditation?
Short answer. I was not there in the lab. I was in the building. It is my opinion, and this is a personal opinion, lack of leadership and not enough oversight of processes. Everything in science has to be about processes and quality. That is not going to guarantee mistakes will happen, because if you use the model, for example, of the lean model of management, I used to work in Michigan, so everything was on the assembly lines. What are the possible points of failure when you are assembling a vehicle? 140? So you can apply that model to what we do as well. What are the possible points of failure you can think of? And try to tighten those possible points of failure. However, there are points of failure that happen just on the daily work that you did not foresaw, that just happened because you are out there doing cases. The key to that is honesty. If you made a mistake, even in my job, a simple mistake of a typographical mistake on an autopsy report, you have to own it and try, how can we avoid a typographical mistake? That seems trivial, but it might not be trivial at the end of the day. So when mistakes happen, they need to be acknowledged, they need to be put on the forefront. And that's why the Department of Forensic Sciences needs a very robust quality team. It takes time, effort, intentionality. Example, just this fiscal year in our building, between the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, the Public Health Lab, and the Department of Forensic Sciences, we went not through one, not through two, but 7 accreditation processes. Successful. But that's a commitment that we overcame that. But in a few months, we go over again and again and again. And the commitment is things are going to happen. You need to be aware of it. And when they happen, what the quality team could do to improve that process. Because every day you're going to be finding things. In my opinion, it's not elegant for me to go backwards and to start throwing people under the bus, because I don't think that's my role, especially since I was not there. It did happen. It did happen. And what we need to look into the future is for it not to happen. And it's not going to happen if you have strong institutions, not the leadership of a person.
Right. Well, I really appreciate that. And I would like you to be the director of this agency in perpetuity till the end of time. But at the end of the day, if there is a new leader at some point far, far into the future, are you confident that the quality assurance measures that you have built within the infrastructure of DFS will withstand time and changing landscape of this space in the years to come?
It needs a commitment from leadership, from the executive, from council, and from the leadership of the agency. That is not about the executive, it's not about the council, it's not about the director, it's about the institution. And for that, the quality department and the scientists are at the forefront of that. How accountable are they? How transparent are they in the results? It's okay to go to court and say, I don't know. It's okay. Nobody goes to jail for saying that. So it's about making the institution stronger, that it doesn't matter who the director is, that the processes are going to continue. That's easier said than done, because when strong personalities come to an institution, they may want to accommodate that institution to their personalities. That's what needs to be avoided. And that gets avoided with very strong standard operating procedures, with quality process that nobody can tinker with.
Mhm. And is it your view that those quality assurance measures and the standard operating agreements are now in a strong place moving forward, that they can live with the institution?
In my opinion, they are, and that's why we were intentional. And I do not like the term partial accreditation, because we submitted an application for accreditation intentionally within a scope. The scope was 2 divisions. And that intentionality is because we want to centralize our attention in those, and then moving into the future into the others. Because you cannot do it all at the same time, because you might get accredited fully within that scope, and then something will fail. So while rebuilding, you also need to have a very robust system, institutional system. And
well, I appreciate that. And it goes to your commitment to accuracy and detail, that you applied for reaccreditation for those 2 units and received full accreditation for those units. I think when people say, and when I say partial reaccreditation, it's thinking about DFS as a whole, as opposed to in its individual parts, to make clear that the work continues. But I hear you. So congratulations on the reaccreditation of the forensic biology and chemistry units. Is there sufficient staffing for the expected demand that will come as a result of these units being reaccredited and the caseload?
I expect that there will be an increase in caseload. We need to be prepared for it. For example, the crime scene science unit is fully staffed as of today. That doesn't mean that due to the increase in the demand of our services, at some point in the not very distant future, we will need more staffing. As it is today, first we need to decrease the vacancy rates we have, and then go from there.
Okay. And what's the status and timeline for the effort to obtain an examiner certification?
For fingerprints or for...
Have you received that certification for the 2 reaccredited units?
I'm afraid I don't understand the question fully.
For forensic sciences and chemistry, have you received the examiner certification?
Yes, we are fully accredited as per ANAB, and we have 0 nonconformities. That means we fulfill every single criteria by that national accrediting body.
Okay, great. So one of the critical findings in the initial SNA, international report was a disconnect between the department's quality assurance team and forensic sciences unit staff. They said they had little direct interaction with the agency. This worries me as it relates to our staffing levels. How accurate are the quality assurance assessments that are offered by the agency?
And I think in fiscal year 23, we've been very intentional about it. The SNA report was dead on in terms of their comments and assessment. And that's why we are rebuilding the quality department, as an independent department that could interact with every single unit and review all the processes and issue the cue cards when there are perceived mistakes and so on and so forth. So going forward in calendar year 2024, that department needs to be even stronger if we are to sustain accreditation and maintaining consistency in the work. In my opinion, a quality department is the backbone of an institution like a Department of Forensic Sciences, because as you know, as you can tell from my colleagues that came here today, we have various departments that have different scientific skills. And in order to coordinate, the coordination of that is the quality department.
Okay, thank you very much. Next round, we can talk a little bit about the next steps with accreditation for the additional units. But I want to turn to my Ward 1 colleague, Councilmember Brianne Nadeau, for a 10-minute round.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Diaz, it's good to see you again. Thank you for your testimony. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
In FY23 and FY24 to date, DFS has spent $2.4 million in independent contracting so far for testing. How much do you expect is needed in FY25 to continue to bridge gaps?
We will continue to outsource until we are fully running, but I will defer to the COO, Ms. Gretchen.
For that question, council member, and the director is correct. We will continue.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if your microphone's on. I'm having trouble hearing.
Can you hear me now?
Not well. It could be me. Why don't you go ahead? I'll watch.
Yeah, that's me. Can you hear now? Better? Okay.
A little better.
So the director is correct. We will continue to outsource into the future years. I know that we requested funding via our proposal to the mayor. I don't think that she submitted it for FY25. But as the program continues to produce cases and bring people online, we will continue in terms of outsourcing. The reaccreditation has also given us access to federal funds that were frozen. And so we also do plan to bring those funds online too as a way to assist us with outsourcing.
How much federal funding is available?
So the federal funds go back to FY19. I would need to, if you would allow me to, we can certainly get that information to your office in terms of the actual amount.
And what is the budget request for local funds?
We made a steady request for 25, so it is the same amount in 25 as it is in 24.
Got it. Thank you. I missed that part. Okay. Okay. And what's the agency doing right now with unused equipment?
There is no unused equipment during the time that work was paused. Our scientists and technical leaders did mock cases and maintained equipment. So there's no unused equipment in our facility or in the building.
Thank you. In the agency's response to question 35, which is about the relationship with DFS, MPD, and the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Bureau regarding the outsourcing of firearms testing, the agency stated, prior to any involvement with DFS, ATF and MPD had a task force specifically related to gun violence in the district. When DFS lost its accreditation, ATF and MPD worked with DFS such that MPD ensures that the firearms retrieved from crime scenes are fired as required prior to any potential prosecution. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this implies that MPD plays a role in testing or examining firearms relevant to criminal cases. Can you expand on this?
Sure. The role is our federal partners, is the ATF, and we have a location in the building for those testing that are now undertaken by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. MPD collects the firearms, so they work in a close relationship with ATF. I don't know, Dr. Love, if you want to add or subtract to that.
Yeah, I have nothing else to add to that. Thank you. Yes. But
Okay.
the firearms are being provided to ATF. Yes.
Thank you. One of the agency's responses, question 49A, noted there are no plans to bring back the firearms unit. Why not? This seems like a pretty big deal.
It is a big deal, but my approach as a manager is to take it one step at a time. Our plan is to have in fiscal 24, at the end of fiscal year 24, or more realistic at the end of calendar year 24, the latent prints. Also, our goal is to have crime scene science accredited by ANAP. It's not a requirement in the statute, but I think it goes with the overall theme of quality in every single unit. And the firearms, as important as it is, I think needs to be tackled once all the other accreditation processes have been accomplished. We trust our federal partner. So what I'm trying to say is, I know council and the executive have been patient with the Department of Forensic Sciences, but we are going to get every single unit accredited in the time frame that we are able to achieve.
So that sounds a little different than there are no plans to bring back the firearms unit. So can you clarify, is there just never a plan to bring back the firearms unit? Is that not something that DFS intends to do? Or is it just that it's not a plan within the next year or so?
It is not a plan. I wouldn't say it's not a plan within this year. And I'll give you an example. When I was appointed as interim director in May, and we contacted ANAP, we thought, and the proof is in the pudding, that we were ready for accreditation of those units. And they assembled a team in a quick fashion and were able to assess within 6 months of that request. We are counting on worst case scenarios for assessing that sometimes from application to assessing, it may take 18 months. So I will not say that there is no plan. Myself as the interim director and the team that works with me, we don't think on those terms. We just want other units to be accredited and prepare for our reaccreditation process that will come at the end of calendar year 24. And then we should be able to tackle firearms.
So why is it a higher priority to get crime scene services accredited when it's not something we necessarily need than it is to get the firearms unit accredited?
I respectfully disagree with crime scenes. I think crime scene sciences is the face of the Department of Forensic Sciences. They are in the street 24/7, and you saw the numbers. They exceed in processing 10,000 and responding to crime scenes in the thousands. And it is one of the largest units. And I think as the philosophy of quality, it is my opinion that they need to be accredited. It's not going to be a tall order because they are already organized, they are professional, and it's a matter of having the assessment. So I think we should take one unit at a time. And firearms in due time will also be brought back. Dr. Lopez, I don't know if you want to add to that or no.
I would just like to echo the importance of crime scene being accredited. Our evidence begins there. So proper chain of custody, proper collecting of evidence allows us to do strong science work in the laboratory. So it's critical that the evidence is handled from scene all the way through the testing properly. And accreditation is one step to ensure that we're doing all we can with that process.
Great. I agree that we want it to be the best possible. I was simply responding to the comment that it's not a requirement to have it accredited. Since we're talking about that, the accreditation of crime scene, will that look at the staffing levels? I've heard some concerns that they are understaffed and not able to attend to every crime scene that they're requested at.
We are fully staffed as of today. And when I was answering to Chairperson Pinto, we are fully staffed. However, I foresee that there will be an increase in the services that we provide. And in that sense, when that assessment is made, more likely than not, we will need more personnel. And unfortunately, because of the nature of what we do, DFS as well as OCME, sometimes we happen to have several scenes going at the same time. And sometimes it's just not possible. However, I'm happy to tell you that the response time of crime scene is within the key performance indicator.
Okay. And how about the number of crime scenes they respond to?
The number of crimes, the crime scenes have increased in the last 3 years. And me personally expect that to be increased. We're fully staffed and as of now, but I expect that we're going to be requested for additional full-time equivalents in the not too distant future.
Okay, thank you. I will come back to you for another round. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks so much, Councilmember Nadeau. So let's continue on this in the analysis of which unit is most pressing to go to next and just talk a little bit about the timeline. So what is your strategy on getting crime scene reaccredited next, and why is that first or third?
Because as Dr. Love aptly stated, the work begins there. And the work not only begins there, they respond to the scenes. They are the face of DFS. And the unit is structured, organized with very good standard operating procedures. And it's a matter of getting that assessment done and to include the quality department in what they do. And it will be a testament to the commitment to quality, institutional quality overall of everybody involved.
Okay, thank you. And how are things going right now with ATF and the work on outsourcing the firearms work?
Certainly. I think Dr. Love could answer that.
I would say that, thank you for that question. The relationship between MPD and ATF is outside of DFS, so the visibility there is limited. And then the outsourcing is not part of our, not one of our contracts that we currently oversee. We are involved in just making sure that ATF has access to their area, making sure that it is properly maintenance and performance checked so that they can do what they need to do. But the relationship is primarily between MPD and ATF.
Okay, so you are unaware of any issues from DFS's perspective that would undermine the efficacy of those cases?
That's correct. I'm unaware.
Okay, thank you. Are there any details you can share about complaints about technical methods, equipment, or services that DFS has received in the last 12 months from staff or stakeholders? Have there been any reported errors for contracted work, for DNA, firearms, or drug outsourcing?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, have there been any quality issues that have arisen during training or testing?
There are always quality issues, and that's why we have a process of issuing Q cards in order to document and establish a process to correct those mistakes, issues, or failures to follow protocol.
Okay. I asked this because there were 23 quality corrective actions in the last 12 months at DFS, 3 in crime scene science division, 10 in the public health laboratory, and 7 in the forensic science lab. and 3 at the agency level. These are all in your pre-hearing responses. And so just, I'm curious, as we talked earlier about the quality assurance with the institution, kind of what steps are being taken to respond to those individually and make sure that the structure is strong enough moving forward.
100%. 100%. Those, they need to be addressed individually, and they need to, if standard operating procedures need to be tightened, then they are tightened. If corrective actions need to be taken, if memos have to be issued to correct issues, then they are, those memos are issues as well. That's why, as I said before, it's a process of continuum. You don't expect to have a complex institution like DFS without cue cards being issued. It's healthy, it's normal.
Okay, thank you. And I think it's important to note, as you highlighted earlier, of if you're on the stand, it's okay to not know. We want to breed a culture and environment where people are coming forward and sharing mistakes as we strive for perfection. So I hear you on that. So let's talk about the USAO prosecution rates. We've seen a decrease in prosecution rates in recent years and described one of the main challenges as difficulty in processing evidence. Can you describe how you see the role of DFS in partnership with USAO in improving efficacy of cases moving forward?
Well, not being an attorney, I'm at a disadvantage. As the interim director of the Department of Forensic Science, as well as the chief medical examiner, the office, the prosecutorial offices, such as in the district, the United States Office of the Attorney, as well as the Office of the Attorney General, are fundamental in prosecutions. And since May, we have worked hand in hand with the United States Attorney, Mr. Graves. He has gone to our facility, to my count, at least 5 times in the last 7 months. So we are working together in an effort for the United States Attorney's Office in the District of Columbia, as well as the Department of Forensic Science, at least to have openness and transparency. And I think those questions, I think the United States Attorney could answer better, because I'm giving you my side of the case. I think it is a good relationship in the last 8 months that we have open lines of communication with them, that they have specifically pointed out at issues, and we have addressed those issues. And I think it's a good relationship. We have to strive to do what we can do. The judicial system is very different. Once you are in court, it's up to a jury. It's up to the judges as gatekeepers. And as I told Mr. Graves, it doesn't matter how good DFS gets, it's only fair for attorneys to bring up what happened in the past. And I gave him an example. When I was in Detroit, issues came when the Office of the Medical Examiner in Wayne County, Michigan, where I work, lost their accreditation in 1976. I said, well, and I was in open court about it. And said, well, I was only 9 years old, so there's not much I can do about it. So those issues will come up. You know, the past is the past. Is how do we move forward? But the relationship from our end is really good and open.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And thank you for your continuing partnership with them. It's one of my goals and something that we think a lot about with this committee is how we can ensure that all of the agencies and partners locally and federally that are focused on public safety are on the same team and are moving kind of in concert together. And so I really appreciate your attention to that and the interrelated nature of the work. So in looking at the pre-hearing responses, particularly question 55, there is a serious backlog in cases, including 1,007 DNA cases, 1,263 CODIS cases, 285 latent fingerprint backlogs, and the turnaround time for completing testing is on average about 69 days. The DC Crime Lab currently has about 1,176 cases backlogged for DNA CODIS, which plans to eliminate in the next 27 weeks through working with the FBI. What is the Crime Lab doing now to address these significant backlogs and improve these turnaround times? And are there any remaining large hurdles or barriers in your efforts?
Thank you for that question. I will be really brief because I want to turn into Dr. Love so she can share the plans. And that's one of the reasons, my only comment, of why we are not resuming casework full speed ahead at the moment, because we need to deal with the backlog. With that, Dr. Love.
Yes, thank you for that question. So in terms of the CODIS backlog, there is 2 steps for us being able to work on those cases. First was the ANAB accreditation. Once we have that accreditation, we must turn it over to the FBI for a secondary review. Once the FBI approves that, then we will have access to CODIS. So we are working through that process. We anticipate having that final approval in the next week to 2, which means we will then begin to work the CODIS backlog. The CODIS backlog is a multi-step. To do a CODIS single case, it's a multi-step process. We do have a plan in which we are going to dedicate a number of our analysts to these cases, and we will, and we're concentrating on reducing that backlog, as we said, in 27 weeks. So we are focused on getting those cases handled. Meanwhile, we do intend to bring on casework in-house. We are dedicating a large portion of our staff to the CODIS backlog, leaving a smaller portion of our staff to be doing casework. But we intend to initiate the sexual assault casework because that has the 60-day turnaround statute. We also intend to look at fired cartridge casings because we developed a new method that we validated, and then it was closely reviewed during the ANAB assessment, and they're very expensive to outsource. Meanwhile, as was mentioned, is that we now have access to federal money. So we intend to use that federal money to start to bring down the casework backlog as quickly as possible. And we're looking at ways to work with our vendors so that we can maximize the capacity that they can offer us, and we can reduce those backlogs as quickly as possible. So we do have a multi-tiered approach to dealing with this backlog. And right now, we are just waiting for the FBI to give a final seal of approval, which again, we expect that to occur in the very near future.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And I appreciate the tie back to why the deliberate nature of the seeking of reaccreditation for each individual unit is so important here, because we also have to address this backlog. And so I appreciate the attention to detail there. I'm going to turn now to our Ward 4 colleague, Councilmember Lewis George. You are here for a 10-minute round. Councilmember Lewis George. All right, Councilmember Nadeau, you're up for a 10-minute round.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Diaz, I've had some conversations with members of the Science Advisory Board, both current and previous, and they've reported to me that DFS is making it very difficult for the Science Advisory Board to do their work. They give examples of last-minute meeting cancellations, lack of communication, and selective disclosure of agency operations, for example, accreditation, preparation, all of which the board has a right to facilitate and advise on. In your opinion, why is there this lack of collaboration?
In my opinion, it's something I don't quite understand. taking into account that I was appointed in the month of May of 2023, having nothing to do with the Department of Forensic Science in the past or any single member of the Scientific Advisory Board. We had a successful meeting of the Scientific Advisory Board in the month of July, and the next one was in October. That meeting was cut short, not because of my say-so as the director, but we consulted with our general counsel, who expressed her opinion that they were in violation of the Open Meetings Act. I consulted further with the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel, which concur with that opinion, as well with open government. So we have three different legal instances where three different legal institutions agreed that they were in violation of the Open Meetings Act. I am open and willing to work with any advisory board members and the advisory board. In the testimony of Mr. Tontarski, you will have to forgive me because English is not my first or my second language, it's my third language. But my understanding is that they are an advisory board, and Mr. Tontarski kept changing the terms from advisory to oversight to some oversight. So I think the statute needs to be read and understood, as well as the rules for meetings. That is just my opinion, not an institutional opinion. I have worked in forensic pathology and forensic sciences in the United States for 30 years, basically to the day. And I think the record that I produce speaks for itself. And I think it's unfair to a new interim director that comes from science not be given the opportunity to work in or have a close relationship like we have developed with the United States attorney. I think it's sad. I think it's unfortunate. And I think there's been miscommunications, misunderstandings, and that will be my opinion. And I'll give you another example now that you're giving me the opportunity. Some of the members, their terms expire. That's not my doing. The director or no anybody in the Department of Forensic Sciences appoints members, suggests appointments of members. I do have 4 licenses to practice medicine in the United States. I know when they expire. So I think it would behoove them to know when they expire, when they're about to expire, and what is the process. If me as the director, coming new, don't know the process myself.
Okay, wait, I'm just gonna stop you because I get where you're going and I only have
Yes.
6 minutes left. So
Yes.
regarding terms of expiration, certainly I'm sure the agency would like all of its advisory boards to be fully appointed. Are you working with the Mayor's Office of Talent and Appointments to ensure those slots are filled?
Of course, we
Okay.
need a strong advisory board with very strong and practical knowledge on accreditation processes.
I'll take, of course, you got it. I
Yes.
don't, okay. So the agency's response alleges ethical concerns with the Science Advisory Board. Members have not disclosed ethical concerns, and the agency has such concerns about the ethics of the members. Could you please be very specific about what those concerns are?
I think I will respectfully decline.
Okay.
I think we can talk about that later.
Okay. How are those ethical concerns being investigated?
Through the Board of Ethics.
Okay, thank you. Is it your position, based on these oversight responses, that the Science Advisory Board contributed to the original loss of accreditation?
No, not at all.
Okay, I would say that's a sort of misleading answer in the written responses, so perhaps it might be amended. Let's go on to a new topic. How is the workload for the forensic biology unit? How is that distributed across different case types?
Certainly, Dr. Love.
So going forward, as we bring testing back online, we have individuals that are trained to do different types of tasks. For example, we have individuals that are trained that can handle CODIS cases, putting CODIS into the system, receiving results. We have CODIS administrators and what they are allowed to do. So that sort of level of training dictates what cases individuals can do. We choose our cases based on the priority that's presented to us from the community. So MPD has prioritized homicides, sexual assaults, and carjackings. So given that direction, those are the cases that we also prioritize.
Okay, and so how do you break up cases, for example, of different types of like blood, semen, skin, etc.? Are they equally backlogged, or does one type have more than another?
I would have it's based on the case type.
Okay,
So based on the offense, because we prioritize by defense, not by
got it.
sample.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. That's helpful information. And can you provide a detailed explanation of what's meant by turnaround time for outsourced cases?
Yes, so as part of the contract, our vendors have to meet a specific turnaround time. So the turnaround clock begins when they receive the evidence, and then it ends when we receive the report. So we
Okay,
monitor that so that we know their performance.
And how does it compare to in-house processing times?
So I am relatively new. I am new as of October, and we have not done in-house processing time. So we have
Fair
that
enough.
data. I don't have it off
Okay.
the top of my head.
Okay, understood. Maybe someone can get that to me. It does seem like we've gone in the wrong direction with the backlog. What are the factors contributing to the increase in it?
So speaking directly to CODIS, so we outsource to public laboratories, private laboratories. Private laboratories do not have access to CODIS. Only public laboratories do. So meaning that DFS is one of the laboratories, and a few other, and then laboratories like DFS have access. So where we are able to outsource to a private company, there are not many other laboratories that can help with our CODIS cases because they also are inundated with CODIS cases. So we were very limited in seeking help with those cases. So they did build during our backlog. And that is why, as we come online, we are focusing there because that we have to do in-house while we can continue to outsource the actual casework. So that's the plan.
Okay. Thank you. And so what specific steps and resources are we allocating to in-house and outsourcing capabilities to eliminate the backlog at this point?
So all of our analysts that are able or trained to do the CODIS backlog, they are being focused on CODIS backlog. And we are focusing on training others to bringing them online. So we are really prioritizing that component while we are slowly bringing on the casework with the sexual assault cases, due to the turnaround requirements.
And how is latent fingerprint unit addressing its casework backlog?
So we only have one vendor, and there is only one vendor available for latent prints. We are working with our vendor. We have recently increased the outsourced capacity per month, and so that will help with the backlog, but it's a limitation of what's available within the larger field of forensic science.
I really appreciate that answer, and I thank you all for your time today. Thank you, Madam Chair, for convening us.
Madam Chair, I didn't want to take more time of Councilmember Nadeau, but I will ask 30 seconds because I want to highlight one of Councilmember Nadeau's question, the overall theme, which is why jurisdictions like the district needs a really strong forensic lab. There is a huge, that's a misnomer. There's a bottleneck in the United States. People think, oh, you cannot do X, therefore send it to private entities. But private entities are way more limited than public entities in terms of the numbers, in terms of the number of scientists, and so on and so forth. So it appears on its face that if a public entity cannot do something, the answer will be to privatize that section. And in theory, that would work. But the reality in forensic sciences is that there are not that many forensic scientists. Even in the private sector, there are not that many companies providing services. And when you are asked to outsource, you are creating a backlog because there are not that many institutions, private institutions doing it. So it is the onus of like jurisdictions like ours to have a very strong lab. So those things don't happen because the solution, unfortunately, is not privatizing helps or outsourcing helps, but it will never be the solution for timing. It will never be the solution for nearly everything. So I apologize for taking some of your time.
Oh, please. This is
Thank
our
you.
Thank you very much. And I do want to note, Councilmember Nadeau, that DFS has submitted an amended version of the pre-hearing questions that removes commentary about SAB and ethics concerns. And so we'll make sure to recirculate that to you. So you have that.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the Science Advisory Board. Just kind of zooming back, what do you think is the ideal role or function relationship between DFS and the SAB?
Is to have a board that is capable and willing to give advice, members of which, in my opinion, should be scientists with background in similar laboratories with experience in accreditation. I think at the beginning of our testimony, I said just within the building of DFS, HSEMA, and the Public Health Lab, we went through 7 accreditations this fiscal year alone, successful. And therefore, we have the scientists with the knowledge, expertise to make accreditations happen and to take those accreditations in time, year after year after year. I think a good advisory board is a board comprised of members that have a similar expertise, that can advise, especially if they have worked in other jurisdictions. This is the approach we took in X jurisdiction when X problem happened. This is how we approach the QCAR process. We also need to have a really good knowledge of the statutes that created our institutions and the laws that regulate. I gave you the example, I used to work in Michigan. Michigan is an open records jurisdiction. $50 money order buys you nearly everything in every county in Michigan. The district has a closed records jurisdiction. And so I say that to say some Department of Forensic Science published their cue cards in a website. We cannot do that. The law doesn't allow us to do that, just to give examples. But with that interaction with members that have the experience and the know-how, it will make it, especially reviewing processes, procedures, I think it will make a good interaction. Me as the director, and I talk on a personal term, I think the more people involved, the better the institutions are if we want to create strong institutions.
Okay, thank you for that. And I heard you in speaking to Councilmember Nadeau talk about, things that happened in the past before you came on. But one of the things we heard from our public witness today was that the SAB wasn't provided detailed information about DFS's reaccreditation process. And in your pre-hearing questions, you noted that accreditation was made public after it was finalized. And so what was your thinking there in bringing the Science Advisory Board members along with you in the reaccreditation process? And if they weren't brought along, how can we, moving forward, make sure that they are included in big ticket updates like that.
Of course, as I said before, when I came in May, it was my priority, number one priority, to get the application for reaccreditation. And I notified the board and let them know that an application and the scope of the accreditation was submitted, introduced the new quality manager, and then the next meeting didn't happen until October. And by that time, we already had our assessing team by ANAP slated to come in December. I think the disconnect was in that brief period of time between July and October. I don't think that the expectation that the application was going to be submitted was going to be that fast, and the approval process was not going to be that fast. Me personally, I'm not against, and I said so, and it's on the public record during that meeting that was videoed. I have no problems about sharing any information, none whatsoever. The breakdown came in October, which I explained, and as I said before, I don't have the benefit of being an attorney, but I defer to the attorneys as to why that happened. But moving forward, I'm more than willing to work with an advisory board and to share the information that needed to be shared. Some information couldn't be shared, and it was explained to me by rules of OCP, mock testing, the contracting, and so on and so forth. However, going back to the relationship with the United States Attorney, we have shared all that information to satisfy the United States Attorney in their quest for having as well a robust Department of Forensic Sciences. So what happened is sad coming from a scientist, but I think we need to move forward and have a good relationship.
Well, thank you for that. And kind of with understanding the closed, word I'm looking for, closed nature and the privacy component of some of your work within the bounds of the enabling statute, how can we be sure, how can I share confidence with my colleagues and others that moving forward, Science Advisory Board will have access to this type of information that could be, or that has in the past been subject to this type of interpretation?
Within the bounds of the statute, I'm willing to provide any and all information that statute allows me to share. 100%.
Thank you so much. Okay, so that concludes my questions for you, Dr. Diaz. I want to give you a chance if you have any closing thoughts or something you want to highlight that we didn't get a chance to talk about today.
At the risk of being repetitious, I would like to thank the members of my team that came today in person, and to thank the 200 people that work for the Department of Forensic Sciences that in the last few years have taken the brunt of something that was not their doing, and they deserve the respect of the community because they are hard and committed workers. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Diaz, and I will share my thanks to you and your entire team and everyone who works at DFS. I am very hopeful for the significant strides that you all have taken, the hard work that you do every single day to keep our city moving forward. And I know it is intense work and difficult work, and I appreciate it very much. I also want to thank my own team for getting everything organized and prepared for today's hearing. And with that, the time is now 12:53 p.m. on Wednesday, January 31st. We are adjourned.